Burlington, Philadelphia. A Beasley Media Group station. Live from the Comcast Business Studios. 97.5, The Fanatic. John Kincade, Andrew Salciunas. This is Kincade and Salciunas. 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
It is good to be back. And we get to talk about the Phillies losing again. So welcome back. It feels so good. Also,
glad to have you, loser boy.
Also, the Eagles. Now, this is an interesting one. I was driving around.
Yeah.
I heard you guys have Will Brinson on. And then I read an article. And it seems like the Eagles suck, and we're just making too much of them. It's Kincade and Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic.
This is Kincade and Salciunas.
I believe it would be a failure for the Philadelphia Eagles, the 2024 Philadelphia Eagles, if they do not win the NFC East. The Eagles have had a quiet training camp.
And to me, I look at it and say, it's wonderful to have peace and serenity out in South Philly.
Kincade and Salciunas. John Kincade, Andrew Salciunas.
97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
And a good Wednesday morning, Philadelphia man Andrew Salciunas alongside my man John Kincade. Johnny, good morning.
What are you up to, brother? Welcome back.
It is good to be back. I feel slightly refreshed.
Good to be back.
And I'm ready to talk about the Phillies losing yet again.
Slightly refreshed. If the Phillies had kept winning,
yeah, then it would have been
you'd be dancing.
Definitely refreshing.
You would have walked in the door dancing.
No, but they lose game one of the Braves, and once again the bats decide to not show up, and that's why I said last week, even though they beat the Marlins and won a couple games against the Nationals, that I won't declare them to be back, because you go up against a more of a legit opponent, and you lose, and you can barely do anything. But we'll get to that coming up in a few minutes. So I was driving back up from the shore Monday. I went down Friday, spent the whole day Saturday, Sunday, and then woke up Monday morning. It was great. I haven't done that since middays, right? Because nowadays I have to be here at 5 o'clock in the morning. So I don't really want to wake up at 3:30 in the morning or 3 in the morning just to get to the studio. So I'm driving up and, finally got the signal, and you guys had Will Brinson on. And it made me think about our conversation that we had on Friday.
I'm just glad you got the signal, and I don't know why you weren't streaming. Why you didn't have the app on, but we'll get into that later.
You also know that I'm 6 years old. I don't know how apps work.
Exactly.
The only apps I know is at Applebee's.
Yes.
All right, so I hear you guys talking to Will Brinson, and I remember the article that he put out there the previous week where he had the Eagles going 9-8.
By the way, we moved him.
He did move.
He said now he'd put the floor at 10.
Okay, so he put the floor at 10. Still, 10 wins is still less than I think what a lot of people expect. And 10 wins, according to this show, John, I believe would be a failure because I don't think 10 wins the division.
10 wins doesn't get Nick Sirianni his job back without a run to the Super Bowl, I wouldn't think.
And you just heard our open that's been playing that we both believe it would be a failure if they don't win the NFC East. That means we have high expectations on this team. We think the Cowboys might take a slight step back. And if those things don't happen, if the Cowboys beat the Eagles to win the division, like you said, unless they make a run to the playoffs all the way to the Super Bowl.
A big run. Or NFC title.
Then this whole season's a failure.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be a trend around here, doesn't it?
Yes.
I mean, honestly, and
because we have high expectations.
We have high expectations, and by the way, we shouldn't apologize for them, right?
No, I'm not going to.
No, we're not. I mean, we are not putting expectations on Eagles or any other team in this town that isn't commensurate with their talent level, their payroll, and previous reasons to have success.
Right. Now, I'll ask you, what were some of the main reasons? Because I got into the conversation midway through. I know that Will Brinson believed that Jalen Hurts would take a slight step back last season.
Too much turnover on the defensive side of the ball, that they would be better by the end of the year.
Right.
He thought that the first 4 weeks of the year, first 6 weeks of the year, were going to be really rocky, and then this team was going to be able to turn it on to salvage its season. And I just said, that's why I said to him during the interview, I'm like, okay, do the Cowboys next.
Right.
Okay, let's do the Cowboys next. Tell me what you like so much about the Cowboys. And I think that's one of the things that is hard for people to sort of grasp is the Cowboys are really bad. Whether you believe
they got a lot of issues right now.
They have a ton of issues right now. And they're not having a clean summer like the Eagles are.
Right, and the Eagles, they're having a clean summer with legit talent. Like, that's the other thing. It's not like they're just having a clean summer and it's a bunch of rookies all over the place. They're just happy to be here. No, they have high-priced players that we have high expectations for.
And I think that we maybe believe Vic Fangio is going to be a bigger – I know I do – that Vic Fangio is going to be a bigger splash as far as showing immediate improvement than some other people do.
Right.
And I tend to not look at 1 year in Miami as the norm. I tend to look at that he took over a crappy Broncos team and turned them into a pretty good defensive club for 3 different years. So to me, I guess maybe his optimism isn't there based on the Miami experience.
So Will Brinson has them going 9-8. You move them to 10. 10, I think, is still less than what anybody expects. And then I see an article from Bill Barnwell.
And I like Barnwell. Do you?
I think he's bright. Look, sometimes I read his things and I go, all right, these are way too analytic heavy, but that's his department. All right, he's not pretending to be some guy that's studying film, studying tape. He's basing a lot of his things off of analytics.
Statistical probability is something that he's big on.
Right. So
I like that stuff, but I don't live by it.
Right. And sometimes people live by it, and that's what they believe. And they'll just go, this is what I believe. This is what's going to be. This is gospel. So he writes an article predicting 5 NFL teams most likely to decline in 2024. Those 5 teams: the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Baltimore Ravens, 2 teams in the same division. Now, that doesn't mean he thinks the Ravens will miss the playoffs. He just believes that they will decline. Last year, they won, 13 games and had the MVP in Lamar Jackson. He believes the Giants will decline. I think the Giants stunk last year. I don't really think there's much room for them to decline, but okay.
No, I don't know where I personally think the Giants are going to be in the running for the top pick.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
I think they're going to be among 5 teams that are jockeying for the top pick in the draft.
He says the Cleveland Browns will be one of those 5 teams. I mean, I guess it all depends on what Deshaun Watson is.
I can't believe that.
They won more games when Joe Flacco was the quarterback last year, and maybe that's what his reasoning is. And lastly, the Philadelphia Eagles. And here's what Bill Barnwell writes. Should the Eagles be better on defense in 2024? Yes. Are these moves locks to work out? Absolutely not. Fangio was just let go after 1 year in Miami, with Dolphins players actively celebrating his departure on social media. Roseman didn't want to give Chauncey Gardner-Johnson a multi-year deal last offseason, then changed his mind after a year in which Gardner-Johnson barely played in Detroit because of injuries.
Okay, that's false.
Exactly.
False information.
He tried giving him a 3-year deal. They didn't like the way the contract was structured.
That it was more back-ended, and I'm going to tell you that the minute I read that,
you're out.
My listening ears go off.
I'm going, you.
Bill Barnwell doesn't know
the story.
Something basic that he should know.
Right.
An editor should know that. And go, man, they offered him. They made 2 contract offers to him, Bill.
This is the second time, by the way, Barnwell has written something about the Eagles that turned out to not be true. If you remember last time, Chunas, you talked about it on your show. You were at Middays at the time. He messed up the Eagles' schedule completely and said they went to Kansas City or whatnot in like October, and they didn't do that.
Yeah, he messed up the entire schedule. You're right. Thank you for that, B-Gun. Bradbury struggled badly and is only on the roster because he has a salary guarantee. Corner Darius Slay is 33 years old. The Bucks benched Devin White during last postseason. Bryce Huff is a liability on rundowns.
Okay. That's another one. There's not enough data for him to say that, and he's a data guy.
Right.
So I even go and look at that yesterday, and I look at him like, okay, there's not enough data to say that he's a liability. But we did hear from our own defensive coordinator that being a 3-down player, he's still learning how to do it.
He's still learning, right.
So look, there's some things that potentially have legs, but you can't state them as fact.
Basically, because I'm not even halfway through, basically he tears down the entire defense. That we have to see more out of Jalen Carter for an entire season and Jordan Davis before he can say, all right, these guys will be fine without Fletcher Cox. He talked about Nolan Smith. I think
that's fair, by the way.
Yeah, I do too. Like, there are things in here that are fair. Nolan Smith barely being on the field last year. That is accurate. And was it because of poor play, or was it because Sean Desai, Matt Patricia, Nick Sirianni only wanted to play Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat? He talks about the rookies and Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, and yes, they might be very talented, but they're still rookies. There's still going to be a learning curve. So he says a bunch of things that aren't wrong, except he also said some things that were wrong. So here's my question to start the show. And I would love to hear from you on the text line, phone line, 610-632-0975. And this question will be question 1, and then we're going to have 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, 1E, and we'll go all show today. I want to do a bunch of what is more likely to happen questions when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles.
Okay.
Like I'm going to ask a question about Jalen Hurts. What is more likely to happen? I'm going to do the same thing about Saquon Barkley, the head coach, the coordinators, you name it. But let's start off with the Philadelphia Eagles as a whole, because all offseason, John, you and I have been speaking glowingly of this Eagles team.
Fair.
You have it in your calendar that we will be at the link for the NFC Championship.
Yeah, I think that's where it's going to be. I know the Eagles are in the NFC title game in my head. That's where I'm at. And that's as chesty as I'll get.
Right. And I haven't gotten there yet.
Final Four, they're going to be, I believe they will be a Final Four team.
And I love that. I haven't gotten there yet. I have them winning the division.
Right.
I have them being, hey, they should be in the Final Four.
They should absolutely be.
Do I believe that they're going to have home field advantage? I don't know. I'm not there just yet.
I picked them for top seed.
And I love that. We have spoken glowingly of this team. We've gotten pushback from a lot of our listeners throughout the offseason. Most journalists, I think, have predicted the Eagles to do very well this year, most NFL analysts. But now all of a sudden, as we get closer and closer to the start of the regular season, we've had two respected people that cover the NFL, Will Brinson for CBS and now Bill Barnwell of ESPN. Will Brinson has them going 9-8. Bill Barnwell does not have a record on here, but has them taking another step back.
Which means a step back from 11. So at least he means 10.
Exactly. So I got to ask you guys to start the show, and I want John your answer, and I want Brendan your answer as well. We'll discuss it. What is more likely to happen? The Eagles take a step forward, which is 12 wins, 13 wins, or 11 wins, but you go, I feel confident that this team is a legit 11-win team, not like last year where they were 10-1 and fell to 11-6.
There's no question in my mind. Forward. And I mean, there's no. Now, does that mean Super Bowl? No, not yet. I need to see stuff.
But they show up to a playoff game and actually play and maybe win a first-round playoff matchup?
Yes. I'm just going to say to you, step forward, meaning I do believe they will have 12 wins. I think that's where they're going to be. I think 12. I don't think they're going to always look great this year. I think the defense is going to early on be a bumpy ride.
Yeah, of course.
Because a young defense will do that. You may have to win some ugly games. But overall, step forward, I say without hesitation.
Brendan Gunn,
without hesitation.
Come January, playoffs are probably still going on. The playoffs are still going on.
Still going on.
And hopefully the Eagles are still going on.
Till the 26th of January, they're going on.
Are we feeling better about the Philadelphia Eagles come January 2025 than we did January of 2024, where we basically talked ourselves into the Eagles potentially beating the Buccaneers in a playoff game, and then they themselves never even showed up? We showed up more for that playoff game as fans than the team did themselves. Are we feeling better about the Philadelphia Eagles in January of 2025 than we did in 2024?
Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind, and I've been a little bit more critical, I want to say, at least yesterday, of the Eagles than John and Connor were. You've kind of been on the same page.
Yeah, you were a little bit of bitch boy yesterday, but it was good.
There's no way, no doubt in my mind they're going to be in a better place. Just a base level, having Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio here boost them up a little bit. There's no way that offense is going to forget how to pick up a blitz, just run straight routes every time, not do a hot route. There's no way that's going to happen. And then the defense, I'm still kind of skeptical of what we're going to get. But with Vic Fangio, the base level's way higher than it was with Sean Desai and Matt Patricia. So they're taking a step forward.
I heard them talk, too, about blitz pickup, as you say. Blitz pickup has been part of every classroom session and every single walkthrough or practice.
As it should have been because of what happened last year. Absolutely.
When players are saying that they don't even have plans for it, that scares the hell out of you about how bad it really was.
Right. And so I see all these things. The new coordinators, Jalen Hurts with a new mindset, Jalen Hurts with more weapons. Like, there's no excuse for Jalen Hurts this year at all. The defense is going to be the biggest question mark.
Oh, yeah.
But do I think it's such a question mark or such a concern of mine that that's going to bring them back down another level from last year? Absolutely not. Like, I'm trying to think about this, John, because there might be somebody that answers the question that it's more likely that they have another step back, or it's more likely that it's more like last season than it was 2 years ago. I'm trying to think of what would lead to that. Like, what would lead to the Eagles taking another step back this year? The defense is just freaking horrible, which I don't expect it to be. I think they've improved in certain areas of the field, and they improved with the defensive coordinator. But the offensive line is terrible.
The offensive line, look, there is a chance the offensive line could be less effective this year.
Absolutely.
Without Jason Kelce. Do I think it's going to be a huge step back? No.
No.
Is there a chance that some of these younger players in defense are being overvalued a little bit? Absolutely, that could be true. But you have to take into consideration this team is the talent that they've got, and that this will be a better plan. They will be a more prepared team. They won't be a team that goes with, 2 creams, 1 sugar,
right,
running their offense. They will come with a better plan. And Kellen Moore has never had an offense that has been a failure.
Right. And oh, by the way, he now has not only just Jalen Hurts, who can throw the football and also run with the football.
It's his best ever.
He also has A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Saquon Barkley. You guys know the roster at this point, and one of the better offensive coordinators in the NFL has all those tools to work with. So we'd love to hear from you, 610-632-0975. You can text in, you can call in. We're going to do a lot of what is more likely to happen questions about the Philadelphia Eagles. But let's start with the overall, the umbrella of the Philadelphia Eagles. Are they more likely to return more like 2022 or more like 2023? Because Bill Barnwell and Will Brinson now have them taking a step back, another step back. We believe here on the show that they take a step forward, but I know a lot of you have been trying to slow our roll, have been trying to tell us not to get overly excited.
You and I think we understand it, right?
Yes.
Like, we understand there's trepidation.
Right, because of a historic collapse
and
last
to
year.
me, like, if someone has trepidation, that's one thing. But you have to acknowledge the improvements.
Right.
You have to acknowledge the things that say to you, hey, there are definite improvements that have been done.
But John, what Bill Barnwell writes about Devin White, we've talked about. Like, he walked in to NovaCare as the best linebacker on the roster. He was benched last season by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and has taken, you want to talk about step backs, he has taken more step backs than Allen Iverson the last couple of years, right? So all of a sudden, I'm putting all this bread in the basket of, yeah, this guy's better than the rest of the guys that we have. Is that necessarily a good thing? I don't know.
Not necessarily enough.
Right, like that's
it's not necessarily enough, but I think that one of the things that's going on is there is a little, and I hate to use the term because it is a military term, the PTSD, but I think it's going on. I think a lot of people don't want to believe. They don't want to believe that the 10-1 team was real. They want to believe the 1-7 team was what really existed. I believe the 10-1 team is closer to their true identity.
If this team went, let's just say they went 1-7 to start a season.
That is never. That's like the funny thing.
I can't even happen.
It's never going to happen.
Exactly.
But breakdowns, as the Phillies have proven to us, breakdowns can happen any time in a season.
Yes.
It doesn't necessarily mean beginning, middle, and whatever.
Just happen at any point.
It can happen anytime.
So let's talk about those fightings. Of course, answer the question, 610-632-0975. What is more likely to happen with the Eagles? A step forward or another step back, as now all of a sudden people in the media, the national media, are starting to get to as we get closer to the start of the regular season. The Phillies lose yesterday, 3-1.
Yeah, they did.
They get 5 hits together. They string along 5 hits. None from Schwarber, Turner, Harper.
0 for 12.
They went 0 for 12. Of those 5 hits, Alec Boehm had 2 of them.
That's so bad.
The rest of the hits came from Nick Castellanos, Bryson Stott, JT Realmuto. Those are your 5 hits yesterday. I know that Ronaldo Lopez was an all-star this year.
He's a good pitcher.
Been having a tremendous season.
Really good pitcher.
He is not Nolan Ryan. He is Ronaldo Lopez, and you are a $1 billion lineup. A $1 billion lineup. And you string together 5 hits. And I get it. Everybody felt great, warm and fuzzy after a couple wins against the freaking Nationals and a win against the Marlins. I told you that I was not going to say that they are back no matter how they played against the Nationals. I need to see how they play against legit opponents. And the Braves, let's not act like the Braves are some World Series favorite right now because their lineup's a mess. Everybody's hurt.
Yes.
Riley got hurt, so he's done for some time.
For the regular season.
The Phillies go out there and put up 1 run on 5 hits. Zach Wheeler, they waste another dominant Wheeler start.
Yeah, but you're missing the point. You're really all right. I'm surprised you're missing the point like this. At least they were well rested for it. At least the manager got them plenty of rest. At least they were really well rested. And that's the bottom line. There's no urgency with Rob Thompson.
It doesn't seem like it.
And they play like it. They play like it. You win 4 games in a row. And it was pointed out last night a little bit on the over on the TBS broadcast. They pointed out. It's sort of strange when you have a 4-game winning streak and you finally turned it around and you've been bleeding out that you would say, yeah, let's have our best players sit out.
Right. You're
because
finally you can get on a bit of a roll.
When you have a day off the next day. And what do? I'm telling you, there's no urgency out of this man. Rob Thompson needs the freaking paddles. He needs the paddles.
Yeah, and look, ownership's kind of talked about it.
Well, he's on record.
Did you guys discuss that yesterday?
Oh, I want to hear your thoughts on it.
All right, we'll get into it coming up next.
Yeah, we had some fun with that yesterday.
I'm sure it sounds like a great time. All right, so we'll discuss that a little bit. What ownership had to say about the Phillies and the conversation about urgency. Answer our Eagles question: what is more likely to happen? They take a step forward or another step back? And coming up next, I'll start throwing some individuals. How about Jalen Hurts? And when it comes to Saquon Barkley, what is more likely to happen, John? The contract pays off or the initial concerns are real? It's Kincade and Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Phillies fall in
On Kincade and Salciunas on this Wednesday morning. Good to be back. I wasn't going to come back just tomorrow because I don't want people thinking that I,
just came back for a burrito?
Exactly. So that's why I strategically decided to come back today on an Adam Schefter Wednesday. So we'll speak with Schefter coming up at 8 o'clock, and I'll be prepared for my burrito tomorrow. So I'm looking. Trust me, I thought about it all weekend long. All right, so here's what we're talking about today. What is more likely to happen? That's the question, and I'm going to do a 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D as the show goes on. But the overall umbrella question is what is more likely to happen? The Eagles take a step forward from what happened last year, or they take another step back. Bill Barnwell of ESPN believes that the Eagles are taking a step back. Will Brinson has the Eagles going 9-8. All of a sudden, in the last week, two respected NFL reporters, analysts, data analysis, whatever you want to call them, have the Eagles taken a step back. When all offseason, John, you and I have been talking about potential NFC Championship game appearances, and you've now written it in stone.
I say no potential. I'm
You're saying
there.
It's happening.
I'm there. I believe it's happening. And look, I could be very wrong, but I don't believe I'm going to be.
So
do not believe I'm going to be wrong.
We'll get to text messages and some calls on this at 610-632-0975. We're also going to talk about the Phillies today as they lost their game to the Braves yesterday, game one of the series. And this is why I wasn't about to say that they're back because they won a couple games against the Nationals. I didn't get a chance to react to this. And I found it fascinating.
I cannot wait to hear your reaction. That's what I want to hear.
So you guys talked about this yesterday. John Middleton's comments. Great article by Todd Zalecki on MLB.com. He spoke with John Middleton, and here's the big damning quote.
He spoke before the series this weekend.
Here is the big quote that was making its rounds on social media. I don't think you can just sit there and say, "Oh, well, this happened and has happened before, and therefore we'll turn it around." And I don't think you can be that passive. I think you have to be pushing and pushing people to rethink what they've been doing. That's coaches and that's players. Everybody has to step back and say, what are we doing wrong? Why is a team that was winning at a 700 clip for 3.5 months now playing at a 325 clip for the last 5 weeks?
Who is he talking to? Give me if you could say he's clearly talking to somebody.
My first thought is Rob Thompson, obviously.
It's obviously Rob Thompson.
Now, I'm sure there are players. I've talked about the messaging and how that's bothered me when earlier in the season, if they lost a game, Kyle Schwarber would get in front of a camera and say, everybody in that locker room's pissed off. Then when a 4 or 5 week stretch happens and you're playing horrible baseball, it's a long season. We've been here before.
A little Hurts-ish from last year.
Yeah, and I didn't like that. So that could be also a message to the player. It could be a message to the entire team. But if you're asking me a specific person,
correct,
it's going to be Rob Thompson. And the other thing that he said, quote, the first week was bad, but that happens. The second week was worse, but that happens. By the time we got to the third and fourth week, it was like, okay, stop. And I don't blame John Middleton, who is paying a ton of money for a roster. Does he expect them to win 120 games? No. Does he expect them to probably remain at a 700 clip? Absolutely not.
No, he doesn't.
But for what has happened over 6 weeks now, and the third worst record since the All-Star break, and a couple of nice wins against the freaking Marlins and Nationals, and then you go out there yesterday and you basically lay a goose egg against the Braves, except for a JT Realmuto RBI single. I don't blame John Middleton for starting to send the message of, all right, it's time to freaking wake up, all of you. And I liked it. I like that it's coming from up top because I'm tired of hearing the players and the manager himself, and I like Rob Thompson. I'm tired of hearing it's a long season. It's been a long season for the last 2 months.
I have heard, even in our own building, Mike Missanelli the other day, defending Rob Thompson's approach and everything. And a lot of what Mike said was factual and true. Players do love playing for Rob Thompson. You know why? Because they're freaking comfortable. Because they're comfortable. When your boss doesn't push you, when your boss doesn't hold you publicly accountable, of course you're going to like your boss. When your boss doesn't lay the hammer down and doesn't hold people publicly accountable and doesn't call out BS performances like last night, of course you're going to like your boss. I'm tired of hearing it. I'm tired of hearing it. And I'm tired of hearing about 22 and 23. This team was up 10 in the division, was up 8 on the Brewers, was up 6 on the Dodgers. You wake up this morning behind the Dodgers, tied with the Brewers. I am so freaking tired of hearing people go, well, you know what happened in 22 and 23? All that matters is October. When you're up by 10 games, when you're up by 8 and 6, you are not supposed to then have those teams come back and get you. It is absolute ridiculous. The defense of this manager and the approach. His own boss doesn't believe it. But we have people in this building that believe it. And look, there are things he does very factually that he does well. But of course you're going to like your boss. If your boss says, yeah, you need a little extra time. Yeah, that's a little extra time. There's no urgency. It's 8. We're on 9 weeks now of this malaise.
Right. Yeah.
Enough.
Middleton's saying 4 or 5 weeks. No, it's even longer.
It's not.
It's 2 months.
John Middleton. The other day I heard Ray Dunn on the midday show with Mike Missanelli and Bill Colarulo that he had some statistic and he's going, stop saying this is 8 weeks or 9 weeks. Their record really is, it's been this short.
That. Yeah, it's only been since the All-Star break.
Oh my gosh. Don't calculator whip me. It's been freaking terrible.
Because I heard that.
Stop it. They're a below 500 team for over 2 months. Stop it.
Right. Ray was saying, look, if you just look at the last couple of weeks, they've been, 10 games under 500. But if you do the whole 2-3 months, then they play right around 500 baseball. But here's the problem to Ray and to anybody else that believes that. They should be better than a 500 baseball team.
Is 500 baseball acceptable?
Exactly. No, it's horrible.
Are we now
for this team?
Are we now using a $250 million payroll this year alone? A team coming off of a World Series 2 years ago, NL Championship Series last year. Are we now using, for 2 months they've been like a 500 team. Are we now using that as, okay, well that's hey, I'm putting my money down. That wins this argument. No. Stop setting standards that are so freaking low.
Andrew,
that don't hold people accountable.
I asked John and Connor this yesterday. You said you liked the comments, and I agree with the sentiment of the comments. I just don't know if I agree with the messenger. You've been the best team in baseball, or you're not anymore, but you've been that for the majority of the year. Say in some far fantasy away world, if the Cowboys were the best team in football for the majority of the season, and then they hit a rough patch, and then Jerry Jones comes out and says something like this, would we laugh at that? Or would we say that's a great comment by Jerry Jones?
If the rough patch all of a sudden, football is a totally different beast. If the rough patch had you as a 1 seed in week 11 and then come week 14, week 15, you're now the 4th seed, right? You're one of the division winners still, which the Phillies are, but now all of a sudden you lost home field. It's a bit of a different beast, but I would take merit with those comments. Look, John Middleton is a businessman. John Middleton is looking. Think about stocks. If you're just doing the line of the Phillies wins and losses, the stock is plummeting.
Are we gonna brag if the Phillies are the 3 seed and have to play in the wild card round?
No, we're going to talk about how they collapse.
Are we going to freaking brag about winning the NL East over a Braves team that anybody with honesty knows if they didn't lose Acuna, didn't lose Strider, right now, this division would be, at the very least, neck and neck.
Yes.
So stop with we're winning the division. What are you crying about? This is an embarrassment, what has gone on since that stupid trip to London. That's where it all went wrong. You know, they went over and had
these greedy owners. London, Brazil. Will Brazil be the downfall of the Eagles?
Did Jeffrey Lurie talk John Middleton into the stupid trip to London?
May have been. All right, so Phillies are obviously on the table after a loss yesterday. This is why. Again, I refuse to say, they're back because of a home run against the Marlins or because of a couple of wins against the Nationals. And, by the way, still losing that final game against the Nationals in that series. You should have swept that team. The Nationals freaking suck. And I get it. I'm not going to scoff at taking 3 of 4. But still, you lose the final game, and then you lose game 1 against the Braves. Now, all of a sudden, you have a 2-game losing streak. They're not back. They still have a lot to fix. And I love that John Middleton opened up his mouth. I appreciate it. All right, you can text and you can call in 610-632-0975. We'll read some text messages coming up next. And also, in terms of our what is more likely to happen discussion, the Jalen Hurts question that we'll discuss next. What's more likely? improve or regress again? Saquon Barkley, contract pays off, or the initial concerns are real? We'll discuss those coming up next. It's Kincade and Salciunas on this Wednesday morning, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Now is the time to become a fanatic.
Going to check the text line in a couple of minutes. But I want to get into these more likely to happen scenarios. So again, Bill Barnwell writes an article that the Eagles will take a step back this season. Will Brinson of CBS had them going 9-8. My question to start the show is what is more likely to happen? The Eagles move forward or take another step back. All three of us, Brendan Gunn in for Connor today. Connor does 2 shows and all of a sudden his voice is lost.
I think he was maybe at the Pink concert.
Oh, is that what it was? He was singing a little too loud?
He was singing a little too loud.
We all believe that they're taking a step forward. So let me start doing some of the other conversations off of this. This is the 1B, 1C, 1D, 1E.
I always hated that in school.
Yeah, because
I think I'm going to enjoy it here.
You think it's a 3-question quiz. All of a sudden it's 40. What is more likely to happen? Jalen Hurts improves from last year. I'm not even going to say plays like 2022. I'm just going to say improves from last year, which I know statistically you could make the case he had a decent season last year. Your eye test tells you he wasn't as good as what he was in 2022. Or is he more likely to regress again? John, your answer, I think I already know because you think he's going to throw for 75,000 yards this year.
Yeah, make it 40. Remember, make it 4,500.
All right, we'll take it down 3,000 yards.
30-plus touchdowns. He's passing for it. Jalen Hurts will have his best year, period. Emphatic, end of statement, that he's had as an NFL quarterback working with Kellen Moore.
Now, you know I'm not
You're not there yet, but
I don't think he'll be as damn near perfect as 2022. Do I believe he's going to be better than last year? Absolutely. I think he himself will be better. I think this coaching staff will help him be better. I think he'll be coached into doing checkdowns. I think wide receivers will be thrown open and will be schemed open. I believe they will utilize the middle of the field, which statistically he was great at last year, especially with the A.J. Brown slant route. But for whatever reason, the Eagles said, you know what? We don't like success. We want to make things harder for ourselves. We want to have to do 6 tush pushes on a drive just to get to the red zone and end up kicking a field goal because we can't score freaking touchdowns. But I believe he will improve from last year.
Okay.
Brendan?
So you're saying second best year of his career?
Yes.
Okay.
Statistically, maybe it's his best season. I'm just saying.
Okay, wait. Okay, this is just what I want to get straight.
Yeah, we can figure. Yeah, I know we've talked about this a lot.
Is it statistically, if it's his best statistical season, is it not his best season? If this team wins the division, he has his statistical best season. Is that not his best season, or do you need?
Like, I saw Carson Wentz have more yards than in previous years in a year that they lost games.
Yeah, it's not just yards, though. And you and I are both.
I know, like completion percentage, I want to see up from last year and from previous seasons. But if he's not throwing 30 touchdown passes, that doesn't mean he had a bad year, right? He might be handing it off to Saquon Barkley in the red zone. He himself might still have rushing touchdowns. Like I'm not saying you're setting yourself up, but
no.
You're saying he's going to throw for 30 touchdowns. He might not because he now has an expensive running back behind him.
I think he's finally going to be in a passing offense that's going to show what he can do.
Could be.
I really do. I feel good about that. I just wanted to get that straight as far as, like best statistical season.
Like 2022, he was almost perfect.
He was
almost
great.
perfect.
He was great.
Like the ball was thrown in the right spot.
He had 6
almost
interceptions.
every single. Exactly.
I mean, last year he had 15.
Right.
I mean, that's huge.
What if he's in the middle? What if he's at 10 or 11?
Yeah,
Does that mean he had a bad season?
No, if he has 10 and he throws for 30 or 31 touchdowns,
right,
and he throws for 4,500 yards, he's putting the ball at risk more. There's more aggressiveness. I'm totally fine with that.
Okay, I think I don't know if I'll ever feel the exact same way I did in 2022, where I go, oh my God, this guy is Patrick Mahomes, even though I wasn't.
What was that? Because
doing that.
You didn't have expectations for him to ever do that at that point. Because I don't know if anybody did. And now we know he can get that high. So if he goes out there and performs just below that, we're like, okay, I've seen him do better. I think that could go into it. But I expect Jalen Hurts, like John, to have his best statistical season.
Easy for you to say.
Yes, exactly. Of his career. Because, I mean, he threw for 3,800 yards in 2022, missed 2 games. I think he can easily go over 4,000. I don't know if he's going to eclipse 4,500, but I think he should have his career best. I don't know if he'll be the best player in the NFL, quote unquote, the second best player, because Mahomes won the MVP that year.
Right.
I don't know if I'm going to go out there and say that about him. But I expect him to take a step in the right direction again, like the team does, because he's not gonna take a step back in my mind in Kellen Moore's offense. Look at the weapons, and if they allow him to throw over the middle of the field like he asked last season, Nick Sirianni said no, then a lot more should open up in this offense. So yeah, I expect him to be better.
All right, well said. We'll get to the Saquon Barkley one coming up in the 7 o'clock hour, and I also have one about Nick Sirianni. Again, we'll be doing this all show long, but I want to get to the text line. B Gun, what do we have on the Eagles? The main question today is what is more likely to happen for the Eagles, to take a step forward or to take another step back, as now all of a sudden people are predicting in the national media?
Yeah, so we got a timely text on this as it has to do with that question and QB1. We got Robin in Lambertville checking in. He wants to start it off with a disclaimer. First and foremost, I am not a Jalen Hurts hater, but he is not, capital not, the quarterback that's going to lead us to another Super Bowl. I'm looking at other quarterbacks of his type, recently Lamar Jackson. They overpaid for him based off 1 year. They're going to take a step back this season. It's going to show. The only saving grace they have on this offense is Saquon Barkley.
The only saving grace?
That's
A.J. Brown's a freaking top 5 wide receiver, and you could easily argue that they have 2 top 10 receivers. Again, my listening ears were totally on for that. Off. And then I just turn off at that nonsense at the end.
So the Hurts contract thing, right? He says they overpaid him for 1 good year. At least he's had 1 good year. Right? Like there are other quarterbacks, Tua Tagovailoa, who we'll talk about later on the show, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, who have not accomplished a single thing in the NFL and have since become more higher paid than Jalen Hurts, right? Trevor Lawrence and Tua Tagovailoa are making more money than a quarterback that in back-to-back seasons, I heard you mention this with Will Brinson, come December 1st, was the front runner for MVP.
The last 2 years.
And played better than Patrick Mahomes in a Super Bowl.
He did.
In which the Eagles unfortunately lost just 2 years ago. So to say, he got paid off of 1 good year, you're right. I agree. But that's the way the NFL is going, and at least he's had that 1 good year.
That's how I feel. I got to tell you, that's how I am.
We'll get into more of your text messages coming up next. I know we also have one on Rob Thompson. Phillies on the table as well.
I'm surprised the Thompson fan is awake because Rob's wasn't awake for much of the past 2 months.
Especially not last night.
Oof.
You can text in. You can call in 610-632-0975. And what is more likely to happen scenarios? I will ask one about Saquon Barkley coming up next, and also the head coach. Will he still be the head coach following this season? It's Kincade and Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Bills drop game 1.
Kincade Salciunas on this Wednesday morning. Adam Schefter will be joining us in an hour, coming up at 8 o'clock, as he does every single Wednesday morning, followed by today's headlines with Brendan Gunn. Brendan in for Connor today. All right, so we're talking about what is more likely to happen. More likely to happen scenarios when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles. And it stems off of another article, another hit piece, John, where the Eagles are going to suck this year. Bill Barr.
Do you? I mean, I know you're drawing people to it if they hear that. Some facts, some fiction. Are we like there are a few things that are falsehoods?
So
that were incorrect.
Yeah, what was incorrect in the Bill Barnwell article was that the Eagles went after Chauncey Gardner-Johnson this year after not offering a multi-year deal last year, which is incorrect. They offered him multi-year deals. He wanted the money up front, which is why he took the one-year deal with the Lions. The Eagles wanted to put it in the back end of the contract because that's when things would be coming off the books for some players on the Eagles. And I understood Chauncey Gardner-Johnson saying, I want my money now. I understood it. I just thought it was a bad decision by his agent, especially to put everything out on social media. I thought that was dumb. But yeah, like this is incorrect because they did offer Chauncey Gardner-Johnson a multi-year deal. But some of the things does have merit that Bill Barnwell writes. He says Philly lost Fletcher Cox to retirement. They have 36-year-old Brandon Graham playing a smaller role and didn't get much out of Josh Sweat last season. Roseman prepared for this by using premium draft picks on young Georgia linemen, but it remains to be seen how they play. Jalen Carter faded badly last season, although he looked like the best player on the defense for stretches. Jordan Davis hasn't lived up to expectations as a pro, while Nolan Smith barely made it onto the field as a rookie and was briefly used in coverage. He's talking about the pass rush, and that's been my biggest concern with this team since Hassan Reddick got traded. Was, all right, this pass rush, I have concerns about them. So Bill Barnwell literally wrote as if I told him to write that part because that is my biggest concern.
And we don't think we take no issue.
But do I believe that that's going to have them take another step back after a season where they had a historic collapse where they went from 10-1 to 11-6 and didn't show up for a playoff game? I don't think it's going to be that bad where they finish with 10 wins or 9 wins like Will Brinson wrote last week.
I don't I think that what's happened is this. What happens with top quarterback prospects and all the quarterback class leading up to an NFL draft? After, like, they do the, go around and do the underwear Olympics out in Indianapolis.
They either skyrocket or they fall off.
And the ones who skyrocket, usually around 2 weeks before the draft, you start to see there are some teams having concerns.
Right.
Here's what they don't do well. And the guys who are down the board, it's like, who could be the high riser?
Dude, Cooper DeJean was going to be a top 15 pick. I know you were saying quarterbacks,
no, but again, it's
DeJean was going to be a top 15 pick 2 nights before the draft. The Eagles got him in the second round.
It's the same concept.
Nolan Smith, top 15 pick. Nakobe Dean, first round pick.
Or second round. Yeah, guys were oversold, and then they undersell them. I think it's the striving for content.
You think that's what it is?
I think it is. I think it's that this is just part of the natural process. When somebody hears too many good things, they want to know, it sounds too much pom-pom shaking. So tell me what's not good.
Okay.
So then somebody writes the not good piece.
About what's not good. And, of course, it's all happening right before the start of the regular season because all offseason, it's been nothing but glowing reviews for the Eagles.
It has been.
So answer our initial question, and we're going to get into some other ones, some smaller ones off of it. The Philadelphia Eagles, what is more likely to happen? That they take a step forward this season or they take another step back? You can text the show. You can call in 610-632-0975. We'll get to the text coming up in a little bit. But I asked about Jalen Hurts. What's more likely to happen? He improves off of last year or he regresses again. We all collectively believe he improves. We did have a texter that believes he'll regress. Let me ask you one about Saquon Barkley. What is more likely to happen, John? That the contract is totally worth it? And he's a big part. It doesn't have to be a big part of this offense like he's, run the ball 30 times a game. But you could see him in the passing game. You'll see him in the running game. He helps Jalen Hurts' life. They don't have to do tush pushes on short yards, right? Everything that you said about Saquon Barkley is true. Or remember when they first signed him, we all had the same initial reaction. Man, it's a lot of money for.
I did not want it
for an aging running back who's had some injuries in the past. You could have used that money on a linebacker. You could have used that money on a safety. You could have used that. Like, we had those legit conversations.
And I think that's fair.
I don't think anybody thinks Saquon Barkley stinks.
No, I was in Punta Cana when it went down, and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I was like, are you kidding me? I didn't expect that, and I didn't expect them to spend like that. I absolutely believe that if we're talking a year from today, or if we're talking in December or January, we will say the expenditure on Saquon Barkley was a good one.
And I agree with you. I think it's going to be totally worth it.
I think it's going to be worth it.
Like, once
I think Saquon's going to go, wait a minute. I got guys who can actually bust holes for me. I got an offensive coordinator because of so many weapons that can scheme me open. I'm being set up as a slot receiver, maybe 30% of the snaps.
Oh, I have a quarterback that can actually throw the football, so I won't be going up against eight men in the box every single down like I was in New York.
I think he's going to feel like he has come to heaven.
Okay.
Now, do I expect that we are going to deal with 2 to 3 weeks of Saquon's out, soft tissue injury? Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, it tends to always happen, which shocks me with such a big man, such a strong man, but tends to happen. If I get 14 games out of Saquon Barkley this year, I guarantee you we are all going to say, well, worth it.
Right, absolutely. Begun, what is more likely to happen that we go, wow, well worth it, or the initial concerns when the contract first came out of, oh boy, they paid all that for an aging running back who's been battling a lot of injuries, and you already have all these weapons, right? And look, I've said this to you guys multiple times.
Yes, you have.
I would have taken Joe Mixon over Saquon Barkley.
Is that because of the price tag?
Because of the price tag, and he does everything that Saquon Barkley does at a little less level, but still very, very talented. And I could have used the money that Saquon Barkley got in other areas. But I'm not. It's like the Bryce Harper, Manny Machado thing. I preferred and raised Manny Machado. At the time of the signing, I wasn't going, oh, they made a mistake.
Well,
no, I was thrilled that it was still Bryce Harper.
And I may be dumb. I mean, this may sound dumb, but see, personally, you take the football aside. I want a guy like Joe Mixon nowhere near my team. I don't want a guy who punches women in the face.
Oh, yeah, I
don't want a guy near my team.
I forgot.
And I don't care if he's.
I don't care.
And by the way, I don't give a damn if he's a redeemed man. I don't want a guy who punches women in the face.
Yeah.
I just don't.
Forgot about that.
On video.
Man, yeah.
By the way, yeah.
But it's funny what 3 or 4 months can do, because I was totally on the side of I do not want Saquon Barkley here, not because of the football player, but because I didn't want to overpay for a running back.
Right.
But when you're sitting here 16 days from the season and the Eagles still have all that cap space and they already paid Saquon Barkley, then I can't complain about that anymore. So the only way it's not going to pay off in my mind is if he's hurt, which I don't expect him to be, because I expect him to not get the load that he had in New York, because they have so many other weapons, they're not going to have to use them like that. You better hope he's on the field, though, because I don't know what else you got behind him. Kenny Gainwell's marginal at best in my mind.
Wow. Okay. Here's where I'm going to lose my mind on you. I do not think Kenny Gainwell is marginal at best as an NFL running back. I really don't.
You think he's better?
Yes. Better than marginal? Yes.
I think.
Yes.
I think he's marginal.
I think he's better. I think he's better than marginal. I will not. How about this? If Saquon's out for a couple games, I am not going to sweat the fact that we've got Kenny Gainwell on this team.
Well, no, you're not going to sweat because you have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert. But let's not overrate Kenneth Gainwell.
No, but that has to be part of the equation. I'm not worried about Kenneth Gainwell.
But you're not game planning for him the same way you would as Saquon Barkley. That's not opening up other things. Like Kenny Gainwell, I'm sure teams are going to be happy to hand him the ball 15
Right, exactly.
times.
They're probably going, oh, we're really glad that Saquon Barkley's hurt because we have to go up against Kenneth Gainwell. Yeah, I wouldn't be – if I was a defensive coordinator, Kenneth Gainwell was not keeping me up at night.
No. I get you. I totally get you, and I understand. Keeping you up, these things get better. He's better than marginal and an NFL running back. I absolutely believe it.
I'm kind of excited for the day he's not on this team anymore.
Well, next year, hopefully, you're going to.
Yeah, exactly. I'm excited for Will Shipley to take that step forward. Will
Shipley's going to take that spot, and if Will Shipley, I believe Will Shipley's going to have a role, and I think people are going to be asking to see more of Will Shipley.
Yeah, probably. So does that make Kenneth Gainwell good?
No, it just is. It
better
doesn't.
Than marginal
it makes him,
running
I think
back?
he's better than marginal.
I think
Absolutely.
He's a guy. I think he's a plug and play. I think he's the same player on any team. He may be better on the Eagles than other teams because of what's around him.
Okay, but you can say that about every Eagle.
Yeah. Oh no.
You can say that about everybody.
AJ Brown's a top 5 receiver probably on any team.
On any team in the league, I don't believe that.
I think the definition of a marginal.
He wasn't in Tennessee.
All right, because Ryan Tannehill.
Well, then
sucked.
I'm saying to you is that you could say that about every
If he goes
Eagle.
to Kansas City, he's the best
Okay,
wide receiver.
I didn't want to derail this into Kenny Gainwell.
Yeah.
I just think Kenny Gainwell is a guy who takes a ton of shrapnel, and he has not in any
he's
way.
just a guy.
He has not been terrible. He has not been a terrible player.
The definition of a marginal running back to me is a guy you draft. You see him out for his rookie contract, and you say, "Have a good
All
career."
right, see you later. Yeah, exactly.
Oh no, I think that's how I would do that for every running back. Every single running back I ever drafted.
Oh, unless he's a stud.
I don't know that I wouldn't. I'd maybe do a 1 year where I would do a 5th year where I would franchise. I wouldn't. I would never sign the second contract. That's why, fingers crossed, everything works with Saquon.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm anti paying running backs. I'd be drafting one.
I normally don't.
I would draft one every year, and I would break the wheels off them. And I'd want
That's what the NFL does.
I'd like
That's what they tell you they
I'd
do.
like the DeAndre Swift year, where somebody else doesn't want to pay somebody, you get the last year of their contract, and a guy like DeAndre Swift actually honors his contract and actually comes to work.
Right.
Yeah,
And
Hassan did not take contract law.
And the
at Temple.
Eagles have done that with running backs. Jordan Howard, I
Yes,
remember
they
they ran that dude into the ground. They said, "All right, we got you on 1 year."
He got what? He got like 3 concussions.
He was, they used him a lot.
They did.
All right, one more before we get to the text line, and the Phillies conversation also on the table, because I know people want to talk about Rob Thompson after John Middleton basically sent the message to the team, and it may have been directed to the manager of Rob Thompson, saying, hey, it's time to freaking wake up. This has been going on for 6 weeks, and as you and I have been pointing out, it's been more than 6 weeks. Nick Sirianni, what is more likely to happen, John? That he's the head coach after the 2024 season, or another search begins?
He will be the head coach after this season.
I agree.
That's, I think, is again. I don't even think he could say more likely or whatever. I think he's the coach next year because I think they're going to have a really good year.
Well, that's what it comes down to. Like, if they have a good season, he remains. If they don't have a good season, he gets fired. And I think we all are on the same page that they're going to have another good season or they're going to bounce back from last year. Love to hear from you, 610-632-0975. What do we have on the text line, B-Gun? Our question about the Eagles, what is more likely to happen? They take a step forward from last year or they take another step back, as Bill Barnwell is predicting they take another step back, which I think is absolutely ridiculous, but hey, he's entitled to his opinion.
Yeah, we got C in Bucks County checking in. He says he believes they probably will take a step forward, but he said the one thing that can derail the season is the head coach. We saw what happened last year when he interfered with the offense. I don't put it all on Brian Johnson. I put it mostly on Nick Sirianni. The main issue from last year is still on the team, Sirianni.
Yeah, but what version of Sirianni? Like Nick Sirianni, we found out in that article that Tim McManus wrote a couple weeks ago, or it was written over an extended period of time, but it posted a couple weeks ago, that Brian Johnson was trying to walk the tightrope between being Nick Sirianni's offensive coordinator and being Jalen Hurts' offensive coordinator. We found out in that article that was all Nick Sirianni's offense, and when Jalen Hurts wanted to do some things differently, Nick Sirianni wouldn't budge. They were both to blame for how they both acted, but Sirianni never budged, and Jalen Hurts wanted to throw the football over the middle of the field. He didn't want to just do bubble screens all the time. He wanted to find other routes down the field to throw to his weapons, and they didn't do it. Nick Sirianni is no longer doing anything with this offense.
Nick Sirianni will, but the one thing that's going to happen is, we're going to have this game where it's going to come out where Nick Sirianni made a call to go for it or not, to overrule a call. It's going to happen. And at some point, and that's where Nick Sirianni will be in the crosshairs of the critique and the discussion.
Well, hopefully
and the
it goes well for the Eagles.
I think he's I do not think we're going to be, I do not believe we're going to be talking about Nick Sirianni being a problem at all. Really don't.
Well, they took away pretty much any opportunity for him to be a problem.
That's what I'm saying. I just don't believe that. And I think the things that they've taken off his plate, he does well. It would almost be if they brought in somebody to do strategy for Rob Thompson. Let someone else do the strategy. Let Rob Thompson be the vibes guy, like Sirianni. And I think Rob Thompson would do great. Be perfect.
Let's get a text on Rob Thompson, B-Gun, because I know people are chiming in on him as we are reacting to another Phillies loss. I know I went away And the Phillies won a few games, and now all of a sudden they've lost 2 straight because they were never really back. Do I believe that they stink? No, I will continue to say I believe they make the playoffs. I believe that they will win the division, and I think any other conversation is basically a waste of my time. However, they're not back yet. They're not screaming World Series favorites right now with how they've been playing, and a couple wins against the Nationals and 1 win against the Marlins does not change my tune. And so Rob Thompson, once again, going with the, long season. What was the Alvarado thing he said yesterday? I just want to give him confidence.
I want to give him confidence. I'm so freaking tired of this. It's August 21st. I'm so tired of Timmy in Little League. Like, we're trying to make sure we don't hurt Timmy's feelings. Timmy's dad's one of my best friends, so I want to make sure that I give Timmy the chance with the game on the line. With every pitcher in the bullpen after a day off available, correct?
Yes.
Everybody available. You thought, strategy-wise, Jose Alvarado, and any of you Rob Thompson defenders that will dare to tell me, yeah, I would have gone to Alvarado. That would have been my choice there, too. You're so full of crap. It's ridiculous. You would never, I'll ask you, you would never have gone to Alvarado there.
Probably not in that spot.
And would you have pulled him after he walks the bases loaded?
Yes. The fact,
or would you let him?
The fact that he let him face one more batter with the bases loaded. Look, am I going to debate Jose Alvarado pitching in that spot? I don't know if I can give a firm debate.
Would you have? Who would you have put in? Would you have felt better going Hoffman?
Yeah, probably.
And then going Estevez?
At some point, you have to find out if Jose Alvarado can do this at all, because there's going to be big spots.
Like, he's gonna pitch in the playoffs, right? Whether you like it or not. And his last 2 outings, I know they were dicey, but he got out of them. But yesterday,
he had nothing yesterday.
Once you walk the bases loaded, and your reliever in the bullpen was ready, they cut over to the bullpen cam.
Hoffman was
one
ready.
Point. No, it wasn't Hoffman. It was Lazar.
Hoffman was up.
Was he up too?
Yes, and then he was up too long, and they had to sit him down.
But they showed the
it was
bullpen
Hoffman and Lazar.
They had 2 guys waiting. Like, they were basically waiting for the phone call to happen. They weren't throwing anymore. And Rob Thompson decided to have Alvarado throw to one more batter, and he walks in a run. And I know they ended up losing 3-1, whether it was 2-1 or 3-1, didn't matter. The offense didn't freaking show up. But insurance runs are important, especially in close ball games like that. You can't freaking walk in a run.
How about when you're in a situation that you say, 2 men on, nobody out. Wheeler's on the mound. You have Stott, Real Muto, Bohm. Stott, Real Muto, and Marsh due up. Do you not get a run there? Do you not lay down? Do you not have Stott, who has struggled mightily, lay down a bunt? Put 2 runners in scoring position where they could score on a single, gives you 2. You got 2 guys that can get you a single, or a run batted in, just knocking a ball to the outfield with them coming up.
This is probably you probably do that in the playoffs, but you're not doing it in the regular season. You're also hoping that they can continue to string together some hits.
It's a Wheeler start. You get Wheeler a couple runs. Wheeler's always going to keep it, like most nights. Not 70-80% of his starts, you're going to get him. If you get Wheeler 3 runs, you're going to be in really good shape to win a game.
Right.
Come on now. Like, Stott's not.
No, he's been horrible.
And then you lay down a bunt, runners on second and third. Then you've got Real Muto and Marsh coming up. One of them's going to hit a fly ball, you hope.
Well, hope.
Even though Marsh has now struck out, 39% of the time?
Yeah, he's abysmal.
It's terrible.
I mean, so you drop that's the thing. All right, so you drop the bunt. They pitch around Real Muto. It's bases low, and now Brandon Marsh strikes out.
No,
now it's 2 outs.
Maybe he does. I think he can get a fly ball.
Well, you just said 39% of the time
he does.
statistically.
I'm just saying to you, he does, but he's got that chance to be able to do that. I'm doing something. I'm doing something.
All right, what's the text that we have on Rob Thompson there, B-Gun?
Yeah, he's kind of channeling what John just said. We got our man Sam checking in. He said, Rob's lazy approach has become the parasite on the morale of this club. His dedication to, quote-unquote, his guys did not cost them the game yesterday, but it did result in another glaring mistake. How do you not pull Jose Alvarado? The worst part of all this is that he hasn't learned from the past 2 years, so what makes us think he's going to learn in the final 2 months?
He's not going to learn. Spoiler alert. I don't know if you've watched it on Netflix. I've already watched the whole series.
You have?
He's not going to learn. if they win the World Series, it is not going to be because of strategy decisions from Rob Thompson.
There's going to be some. Look,
It's
there
going to
were
be
games
because
last year
the
where he
offense
did
gets
make.
hot.
There were games last year where he made great moves.
Oh, absolutely. There are games where he can make a move.
I can't say that there won't be any games during the playoff
Him
run.
as a strategist is not going to be the reason they win a World Series if they do. The bats are going to come alive.
Well, yeah,
they're going to be
course.
offensively strong. That's what's going to happen.
And you saw last year, it wasn't just bad managerial decisions. It was also the bats went ice cold. Both were true last season. 610-632-0975, the number you can text in, that you can also call in. Coming up next, we'll continue our discussions that we have, but I also want to bring something up. Speaking of quarterback and coach, the story coming out of Miami, out of the mouth of Tua Tagovailoa. How can you coach these days, Johnny? It's Kincade and Salciunas, 97.5, The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
The division lead down to 6 games.
On Kincade and Salciunas, 97.5, The Fanatic. All right, we're going to get back to our Eagles and Phillies discussion in a few minutes, but I want to go through the story that Tua Tagovailoa, of obviously the franchise quarterback of the Miami Dolphins, he was on the Dan Le Batard show.
Yep.
Did you see any of this or read any of the quotes?
I heard it referred to on ESPN overnights tonight, but I did not go and get the quotes extensively.
So this is a interesting topic.
Okay.
That I would love to dive deeper into one day or maybe even today. We'll see how the conversation goes. And it's easy for you and I to say certain things. It's funny, dude. Literally earlier, you were saying how everybody wants to play for Rob Thompson because he lets everybody do whatever they want. And he's nice.
You're gonna support your boss if your boss doesn't hold you accountable, has things very loosey-goosey,
right?
Doesn't call you out publicly when you're not performing. You're gonna love your boss.
So I had to bite my tongue because I knew we were gonna get into this at some point. And my question is, how easy or hard is it to be a coach in 2024? You know how we always say in today's society.
Yeah.
Well, it does carry into sports. So he was talking about his love for Mike McDaniel. Tua was. And they finally started pushing him like, all right, so you love Mike McDaniel so much. What the hell was going on with Brian Flores? And here's one of the quotes. To put it in the simplest terms, if you woke up every morning and I told you that you suck at what you did, that you don't belong doing what you do, that you shouldn't be here, that this guy should be here, that you haven't earned this, and then somebody else comes in and tells you, dude, you're the best fit for this, you're accurate, you're the best whatever, you're this, you're that, how would it make you feel listening to one or the other? So he's talking about how Brian Flores basically told him that he sucked, which...
Do you believe this?
No.
Either do I. Either do I. Your boss could be critical of you, and he could say, our boss could say to us, John Andrew, remember we talked about doing this, and you didn't do it? Remember you told me last week you were going to do this? Well, I need you to do it better. Where you lost your focus, you did this. And then we could take that as Christy or Christina talks to us later over dinner, and we go, boss is riding our ass again today, tells us we suck.
Right.
Tells us we're terrible. And that's what happens. Tua sounds like such a little bee.
So
I got to tell you.
I'm looking back at his first year, which Brian Flores was the head coach.
Right.
He was okay. Remember, there was talks about him being a bust, and remember even before he was drafted, there was concerns surrounding him.
He started out very slowly.
They went 6-3 with him as the starting quarterback. He started in 9 games. They finished 10-7 that season. 10-6 that season, excuse me, because it was before they added the extra game. And Ryan Fitzpatrick was the starting quarterback. Fitzpatrick, we know, was the bridge.
Oh, yeah.
Right, to every quarterback over the last 5 years of his career in the NFL, he was a bridge to somebody and was making good money doing it, right?
Sure he was.
And then year 2 of Tua Tagovailoa, he really wasn't that good at all.
He wasn't.
Like
he actually regressed a little bit.
He only threw for 2,600 yards, 16 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. And oh, by the way, Brian Flores is a defensive coach. So it's not like Brian Flores was running the offense. This isn't a Nick Sirianni, Brian Johnson dynamic, right?
Correct.
Brian Flores is a defensive coach. He is not the offensive coordinator. He's not the head coach that will run the offense, none of that. So he talked about how Brian Flores was really hard on him. And Mike McDaniel's been so much easier. Then there was talks about Tua being traded for Deshaun Watson. Remember, the Dolphins were very in on the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. Quote, you hear it regardless of what it is, the good or the bad, and you hear it more and more, and you start to actually believe it. I don't care who you are. You could be the president of the United States. You have a terrible person who's telling you things that you don't want to hear or probably shouldn't be hearing.
A terrible person. This is key.
Right. You're going to start to believe that about yourself. That's sort of what ended up happening. It's basically been 2 years of training out of that.
Almost anyone in NFL. I've never heard anyone in NFL circles describe Brian Flores as a terrible person.
And the only reason why you heard he got fired was because he tried winning. Remember the Dolphins they actively wanted to lose?
They wanted him to tank.
Right.
And he wouldn't do it.
And who was the quarterback of the team that they wanted to tank? Tua Tagovailoa, right? Like,
I mean, it's the bottom line is that I can't believe that I can't believe this goes on.
Well, did you hear what Tom Brady said about it?
What did he say? I didn't.
He said he was on Pat McAfee show or whatnot. He said, if a coach is going to be hard on me, I was going to accept it, the difficult coaching, because I need to hear it. That is what accountability looks like. You can't have an ego so big that any criticism is going to lessen your confidence.
Correct.
I mean,
you're a little B.
Tua literally said it's basically been 2 years of training out of that mold.
Of a terrible person that I worked for. Give me a break.
But how hard is it? Think about it. In today's society, because people are softer. I'm
it is.
30, right? I'm not a 60-year-old saying, "Oh, this generation's so soft these days." Like, no, like I speak for myself and I speak for my fellow millennial. There are a lot of softies out there, right, that can't handle constructive criticism or tough love or tough whatever, tough coaching. How hard has it got to be? So you talk about Rob Thompson. Everybody wants to play for Rob because he's really nice.
No,
for
it's
him.
like here. Of course, Rob Thompson's players are going to like him. Because he always has their back publicly. He doesn't rip them. There's nothing like nobody is feeling. Brandon Marsh just can go out there and be horrendous for a year, and it's just like keep putting him out there. I'm going to believe in you, kid. Or Jose Alvarado. And if you tell me last night you would have put Alvarado in that game, you're lying. Or you just don't know baseball. It's one of the two. And you decided that Alvarado was the best option. Of course players are going to love him. I don't want to hear who they love anymore.
But the question is, how are you supposed to manage? Like, now it's baseball and football, obviously totally different. 162 games compared to a 17-week regular season. But how can you not coach hard?
Who won a
that's the thing. Like, I don't get how Tua has this problem.
Who won a title here in your lifetime?
Charlie Manuel.
Doug
Peterson, who was a players coach.
Doug Peterson, players coach. Doug Peterson many times spoke out about where his team looked like crap, when they looked like crap. He had no problem saying that was unacceptable today. Mm-hmm. That was terrible. He didn't tend to be name calling, but he did that.
Right.
Charlie Manuel, players manager, guys loved him. But Charlie Manuel would literally call you out.
It's 15 years ago, though.
Oh, so now you can't?
No, but that's what I'm literally saying. That's what I'm literally saying. Like,
what do you mean you can't?
Society has changed, and I don't think for the better. I think society has changed for the worse in terms of
it's pathetic
how you can handle constructive criticism. There are things in society that are better nowadays. Let me tell you.
No,
before somebody thinks that I'm saying today sucks, yesterday was better.
No,
in terms of how people handle criticism.
Oh my gosh.
It's gotten worse and worse, the people that are handling it. So to Brendan's point, he's right, John. That was 15 years ago.
You're saying you can't.
I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying there are some people that can't handle it. And so as a head coach, like, I don't think Brian Flores did anything wrong. Now, I don't know what was said behind closed doors. Maybe Brian Flores did look Tua Tagovailoa in the eyes and say, you suck at football, you shouldn't be here. I don't know. I wasn't a fly on the wall in those conversations. But if it was just he was being hard on him and playing Ryan Fitzpatrick over him for learning reasons, is that really the worst thing?
I understand. For learning reasons, it shouldn't be. But I mean, like I put to a thing about what can you do, what you can't do. Who won the last two World Series? Two men in their 70s. Two men in their 70s.
Bochy and Baker, yeah.
Two men in their one close to their 70s, one in their 70s.
Yeah, old school.
And by the way, they do not hold back on critique. When their team plays like crap, they do not sit behind a microphone and Dusty doesn't go, yeah.
I do think baseball and football guys are cut a little bit different. And when you're talking about 53 men in the locker room compared to 26, it's a lot easier to manage 26 than it is 53. And I think that goes into it.
I think it's harder. But I think it's harder to manage 26 because you're managing them every single day.
And you're managing all 26, whereas
it's a football team.
You have linebacker coach, wide receiver coach.
Nick Sirianni doesn't coach his players individually on a daily basis. And I think being a baseball manager is the hardest job as far as managing all the personalities and the egos and everything like that.
So is this more on players or coaches, John?
I think it's both. No, I think it's a joint.
All right, let's dive into this coming up more because we can tie this into the Rob Thompson factor because Rob Thompson seems to be very easygoing and seems to be saying, hey, it's a long season when it's been a 9-week stretch. but is there a better way of handling it when you might have fragile players? Tua Tagovailoa is clearly a fragile player when it comes to coaching. He needs Mike McDaniel to hold his hand. Maybe there are some players in the Phillies locker room. I don't know. Maybe Rob Thompson reads the room a certain way. Let's dive deeper into that coming up next. We'll get to some text messages as well. You can text the show, call the show, 610-632-0975. It's Kincade and Salciunas on this Wednesday morning. Don't forget, Adam Schefter joins the show at 8 o'clock right here, 97.5 The Fanatic.
The real and inside story on the Phillies is on the best show ever. Every Wednesday at 4:20.
747 on Kincade and Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic. All right, so
Don't be a terrible person today.
yeah, apparently
Oh my
Brian
gosh.
Flores is a terrible person, according to Tua Tagovailoa. But I want to expand this conversation and what we got going on today. And look, Adam Schefter is going to join us at 8 o'clock, so I'm excited to ask Schefty about this because football is a different beast when it comes to coaching, right? Like you need to be on your players more than maybe a baseball manager or a basketball coach. Hockey, we all know, is a different beast. But our initial conversation is what's more likely to happen. The Eagles take a step forward or take a step back because Bill Barnwell is writing an article that they're taking a step back. The Phillies are always on the table. We're talking about them as well. You can climb in at 610-632-0975. But is this a conversation, John, in terms of what happened in Miami, where Tua Tagovailoa is so happy now that Mike McDaniel is the head coach because he is positive, whereas Brian Flores was more tough, and that's why he didn't necessarily like playing for him, and he says that he was told that he sucked, which I can't believe that to be the case, but okay.
No. I think he could tell him. I think he could rip him apart in a film study and say, yes, this was terrible. You didn't do this right. You didn't do this. We taught you this. And you walk out of there and someone says, well, what happened? You go, oh, he thinks I'm bull. He thinks I'm terrible.
Right.
Let me throw this at you guys, though, because somebody did chime in on the text line with a good point. They said he was coached by Nick Saban, so he knows what hard coaching is.
Yeah,
so is it a reality or an idea out there that maybe Flores was just
even worse?
You know the difference? In the NFL, when you line up on Sunday, the rosters in the NFL, you're probably talent-wise most likely going to be within 3 or 4 wins of every single team that you play.
Right.
When you're at Alabama, you have 12 regular season games. 10 of them are clown shows. Maybe 9 are clown shows. Where when Tua played at Bama, every single position on the field, every single offensive lineman probably could have started, except when they played Georgia or maybe one other team. Every player on his team is better than every player on the other team. So you don't have as much tough coaching when it's 42-7.
Right.
Give me a break, Tua. Get out the smallest violin.
So
is
this more on players or is this more on, like, do coaches have to try to adapt or should players – look, a lot of it has to be with money. Yeah, we know that in the NBA the players run the league, right? Like, coaches don't run the league.
Right.
There are some coaches that have cachet, like Nick Nurse clearly has it the way a lot of players talk about him. But then there's some other coaches like Doc Rivers who basically just rolled the ball out there and said, go play basketball. And it seemed like the players had a lot more power than Doc Rivers. So I don't know. Like, is this a
Well, you said that was
thing?
the Sixers' problem even before I moved
it
home.
was, yeah.
I would read about it. I'd hear about it.
It was a problem.
That was a problem before.
So I don't know. Like, I'm curious to see what people think about this when it comes to the coaches. Now, Brian wants to talk about this story, and he thinks we're crazy. What's up, Brian?
What's up, Brian?
So, hey, John, man, you're my guy, and this hurts me, man, because I'm a Dolphins fan.
Okay.
100% with you all the time. I'm riding into work. I'm like, yo, what is this dude talking about?
All right, bring it.
Quick. It's number one. We're supposed to even see the field. His here. So that was Ryan Fitzpatrick's team.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick was the starter, and Changeli entire offense around Ryan Fitzpatrick. What happened was so upset on the team because he didn't want him to be drafted. He just threw him in.
Okay, but why was he
at all? He shouldn't have went in at all.
So he shouldn't have been. So he shouldn't have been played. They draft him where they draft him, and they shouldn't have played him in his rookie year.
Off of that hip injury, they should not have.
Your phone's breaking.
Yeah,
in
your
and out
phone's
on us a
cutting
little
out.
bit.
Sorry, Brian.
Your phone's coming in and out during the conversation.
So he's a Dolphins fan, and he's pro Tua because he's still the quarterback.
I wrote this up for you here, and I just brought up the very first thing about Brian Flores, the guy. Brian Flores brought his bias suit against the NFL a few years ago. There were 74 executives, coaches, and players that wrote or spoke on his behalf. There were 2 that, given anonymity, decided to say, here's something bad with Brian Flores. So I'm just going to say, first of all, anybody in the world you could find somebody that was willing to anonymously
Say
tear them
something
apart.
bad, yeah.
To be able to have people put their name on it that work in the NFL, that have worked in the NFL, that have ties to there for their careers, willing to speak on his behalf. I'm going to just venture to the fact that he's not a terrible person. He may be a bit of a jerk when he communicates. Bill Belichick was known to be that at times. He might be that.
Look, Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts needed a third party in their room.
Jalen Hurts obviously thought Nick Sirianni was a jerk.
Right.
I don't know if he thought he's a terrible person, but there was obviously issues there. Look, everybody can take issues.
But you know what's interesting? You make a great point, B-Gun. He writes it up on the screen that Dolphins players, same team by the way, complain about Vic Fangio's hard coaching style.
Correct.
So maybe it's an issue with the players in Miami and not necessarily the coaches. And that's the thing. Like, is this a today's society coaching thing? Is this the players need? I don't want to say man up. Do the players need to?
Well, you can say it. No, don't say it. I'll say it. Are you freaking kidding me? Like, you can't be. Look, if you are going. Look, there is. Let's say, hypothetically, there was a radio show in Philadelphia that is like the greatest radio show in the entire country ratings-wise. Mm-hmm. By the way, there is. I'm not going to mention them, but they're awesome guys. And you're not them. Every single day you should be going, how can I get closer to them?
Right.
What can we do to be closer to them? What can we do to be a little bit better today than we were? And if you don't want to hear it, and you don't want to be pushed, and you're not getting the job done enough to be able to get there, cry me a freaking river. Grow up. And I'll say it. Man up. Man up. Absolutely. Tough love.
Yeah, and Mike McDaniel's a positive coach. He himself said it. Tua Tagovailoa himself said that Mike McDaniel is a positive coach, and that's why I like him. Nothing.
Mike McDaniel's not won a damn thing.
Mike McDaniel and Brian Flores did the exact same thing.
For God, Mike McDaniel. I hear so much about Mike McDaniel.
Oh, it makes me want to puke. He's so...
Seriously. If they do Revenge of the Nerds again, he needs a walk-on.
All right, coming up next, we will be joined by Adam Schefter, and I can't wait to ask him this question. It's a little bit of a deeper discussion today.
It is.
Right? About how coaches need to handle players in today's society. We've asked Schefter about the Vic Fangio situation, so let's see if this Brian Flores thing, there's something real to it, and is that something that Nick Sirianni needs to focus on, everybody's feelings? I don't know, but Schefter joins us to start the 8 o'clock hour. Always love talking to Schefter on a Wednesday. It is Kincade and Salciunas right here at 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
On Kincade and Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic on this Wednesday morning, which means we will be joined momentarily by the great Adam Schefter of ESPN. We have today's headlines with Brendan Gunn after that. And, of course, we're going to get into it with Schefty about the Eagles potentially taking a step back because one of his coworkers, Bill Barnwell, wrote an article that there are 5 teams he predicts will most likely decline in 2024, and he has the Eagles as one of those 5 teams coming off of a disastrous collapse last season. So that means they would take another step back?
Well, I guess they took, they canceled tomorrow's practice, so maybe they're thinking they're not working hard enough.
Maybe that's what it is.
It could be that. Who knows?
All right, let's head to the Comcast Business Hotline, where every day business is a big day. Let Comcast Business help you move forward with what's next. And, of course, he's brought to us by Landis Block. Create your very own jaw-dropping backyard paradise online at landisbc.com. From ESPN, Adam Schefter joins us. Schefty, good morning.
Good morning, guys. What's going on?
So today we're getting into most likely scenario discussions, and I'll throw a few at you. But the reason why we're having this discussion is Bill Barnwell, one of the great employees at ESPN, predicted 5 teams to most likely decline in the 2024 season. 3 of those teams all in the same division, Steelers, Ravens, Browns. He has the Giants, and he has the Eagles. So, Schefty, I'll ask you. Not what needs to happen, but what is most likely to happen? That the Eagles bounce back this season, or that they take another step back and injuries are not on the table. It's just the roster and how it's constructed.
Well, I think it's more likely that they step forward, but if Bill Barnwell's right, then that's going to create a chaotic season in Philadelphia with lots of turmoil and lots of speculation. And I know you guys, I think you guys would rather have them win. But, boy, it's going to be busy at the station if Bill Barnwell is correct.
I'm surprised that that opinion is out there. And one of the things being is that I think the overwhelming opinion is people don't believe you can transition this many young people in on a defense and find success early on. With Vic Fangio's expertise and what you know of him, how hard is that task going to be, Shifty?
I don't know that they have as much defensive talent as they've had in other years. I think that the defensive talent is solid, and I think they're counting on Vic Fangio to make sure that there are no issues, that everything gets ramped up, that everything goes the way they want it to. But, I don't think it's a given that this defense is going to come in and play lights out the way that some people think. Are you expecting this defense to be much better, John?
Yeah, I'm going to say that they were 30th. They were 30th last year, so I do expect them to be much better. I would guess though my ceiling is around middle of the pack, a little better.
Well, middle of the pack would be a dramatic improvement.
Dramatically,
yeah. And honestly, and I don't think this is a shot to make them off that way, but just think the coaching change is going to be one big difference. And they may be lacking some talent on the defensive side of football. They may not be as talented as a lot of other teams defensively. I even said this today. I go, Vic. Last week I go, Vic, whatever this defense is lacking, you can make up for it. He kind of went, no, nobody wants to hear that. You want everybody to chip in and do their job. And it's not that easy. But I have come to expect that of Vic because that's, to me, the kind of coach he is. And we'll see, not on him, but we'll see if he can come through like I think he can.
Schefty, I don't even want to believe that this could be a possibility, but the articles that are starting to come out about the Eagles' slow start, right? So Bill Barnwell believes it could be a slow start because of all the turnover on defense. A reporter from CBS has the Eagles going 9-8 because of a slow start. If they have a slow start, 2-2, 2-3, 1-4, I mean, how itchy is the trigger finger for Howie when it comes to the head coach?
Well, the coach, I think it would take a lot to make an early in-season change. I mean, those are rare. Those are the disaster seasons. Those types of changes that are reserved for the teams that are picking at the top of the draft. And even if the season doesn't go the way the Eagles want, I still don't see that. scenario. So I don't see that in play, but that's the great part of the season, is that there are things that happen all the time that you don't see coming. It's hard for me to imagine all of a sudden they're going to be changing coaches early in the season. I don't see that scenario. I don't see it. Now, what we're talking about is all these other scenarios, right? Like the Eagles season won't be as good as you think, like Bill Barnwell saying, or they're going to get off to a slow start like CBS is saying. I'll just say this. If all those people are right and this season doesn't go the way that they want, then you know what that means? It means that the scenario that we've talked about, that we've floated on this show, is going to unfold. And that means that Jaden Daniels is going to come to life, be a major player for the Offensive Rookie of the Year, almost single-handedly turn around that organization, and have Washington be a factor for the next decade. We've talked about that, right?
Yeah, we have. I'm going to ask you this, is that I've tried to rack my brain. I'm trying to write something for our website about coaches who have had great successful careers in the NFL that have suffered the kind of season last year that Nick Sirianni did, that have then turned it around and gone back to form where that was just the blip. I'm having a hard time finding them.
I'm thinking right now.
I mean, honestly, I'm having a hard time thinking of the guy who has a really successful career as a head coach who has that on their resume and rebounds from it. I think I stumped Schefter.
Sean McVay. Success early on. The team zipped, didn't play well. He was going to quit, came back, and then he succeeded again. Is that? I mean, again, I'm just.
Yeah, but McVay didn't have his players mutinying on, where there was player mutiny in the locker room and stuff like that.
And he's considered an offensive genius, where Sirianni is kind of a guy.
Doesn't have his fingerprints on. Sean McVay has his fingerprints all over that crime scene. Nick Sirianni does not.
I'm trying to think of a coach who has kind of bounced back from the abyss or from dark days, real dark days, and went ahead and succeeded in a big way.
I mean, it usually doesn't happen unless it's like a quarterback got hurt and then they obviously lose games and then they come back.
How about
it's hard.
How about Mike McCarthy in Green Bay when they won the Super Bowl?
That's not bad, but was McCarthy ever really on the hot seat as far as his?
I don't know. There were people that brought him up and raised questions about him. I mean, that came up some.
Sure.
How about?
It's hard. This is hard. I didn't mean to stump you like
Way
this.
to go, Johnny.
I didn't
Thanks
mean to
a lot.
stump you like this,
Well,
but it is
would
because
say,
I can't figure that.
How about Bruce Arians? But then he signed Tom Brady.
Exactly.
Right. And Tom Brady.
Exactly.
Tom Brady helps things a little bit.
The great equalizer.
Yeah, exactly. We're speaking to Adam Schefter on the Comcast Business Hotline. Schefty, speaking of coaching, and I know this is going to be a tough question, another tough one, so we're making it hard for you today. There's an art.
Yeah, you really are. I want double my rate.
Yeah, exactly. We'll let Scott know about that. So Tua was on the Dan Le Batard show and was talking glowingly about Mike McDaniel, about how positive of a coach he is. And then, of course, it got into the conversation about Brian Flores and how hard Brian Flores was on him. And he was made to feel like he sucked and that he didn't belong. And it was 2 years of that, and he's still trying to get past those emotions 2 years later. Schefty, I know football is different than other sports, but I also know that 2024 is different than 2004 or 1994 in terms of emotions. How difficult is it to be a head coach in the NFL, a tough sport, but also having to be worried about maybe feelings of some players? We also just saw Vic Fangio and the issues with Miami last season.
It's a deep question, and I don't care that the years have changed. I still think it's similar from time to time. There are coaches that are going to wear you down and grind on you, and there are going to be coaches that comfort you. And I think the most successful ones find the right balance and know when they have to push a guy and know when they should be letting up on a guy. And in this particular case, it clearly sounds like Brian Flores didn't know when to let up on Tua, and you have to know the individuals you're dealing with. And, you know, you just made me think of something. When I was with the Lions a couple of weeks ago at a Giant Lions joint practice, and I was talking to some of the players, just having random conversations, and one of the players said to me, he said, "You have no idea how good and smart Dan Campbell is." And I said, "What makes him that good and smart?" And he said he knows just what to say to the guys and when to say it to them. His emotional intelligence is really high. And just because you're a coach that can get fiery and tough, you know, sometimes you have to know that our quarterback Tua from the Big Island, that's not what's going to work with him. And you have to throw different speeds at different pitches at different speeds. And I think you could see when Brian Flores spoke yesterday, I think he was clearly introspective about what Tua said and made him think, is that the way that I would handle it? Is that the way I should handle it? And I think we all go through these things and we learn, and maybe sometimes you're yelling at somebody, a child of yours. You know, you're yelling more than you should. Or, you know, sometimes you need to prop them up. You know, if I'm getting mad at my daughter, my wife, maybe sometimes, you know, we'll be the soft, nice cop and vice versa. And so there's just a balance. I don't know the coaching's changed. You know, guys need to be motivated, and they need to be motivated in different ways, and not everybody's the same. And that's sort of kind of the way that it works, whether it's 2024, 2004, or 1964.
All right, fair enough. Now, Schefter, last thing before we let you go, and we appreciate your time as always.
Yeah.
Can you give us a little more about last week? You wanted to tell us something.
You promised us a tidbit.
But you couldn't.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you've heard. Basically, last week I brought O's the Mentalist. I don't know if you've seen his work before.
I guessed
it. John guessed this off the air after you were done. That's amazing.
This.
Yeah, O's the Mentalist, who is really unbelievable what he does. And he's performed the last few years for various NFL teams. And so this year, you know, we hadn't done the Eagles, and ESPN was interested in the Eagles. And so I called and arranged this summer to do it with the Eagles. And they asked for it to be done in Foxborough, in Boston, on Wednesday, August 14th, before their joint practice that day against the Patriots. And so O's and I drove up on Tuesday night, checked into the hotel about 11 o'clock, 11:15. That was when we bumped into a bunch of the players in the lobby, like Lane Johnson and Cam Jurgens and Frank Calcavecchia, Kenny Pickett. And he performed for them on Wednesday at 9 o'clock. And, you know, again, I've watched him, and I think what he does is impressive. We went from the Eagles that afternoon. We flew to Boston, or flew to Pittsburgh, and he performed the Bills on Thursday. And like, when the pieces run on ESPN at some point this fall or winter, and I don't know when they're going to run because they have to piece it put together, and they pick a date that works. Maybe it's like when the Eagles are on Monday Night Football, or they're playing the Cowboys one weekend, or it's a big Philadelphia Eagles weekend. I'm sure that's when the piece with O's will run. But I mean, what he does is incredible. The one with Buffalo was off the charts.
Well, I remember he had Aaron Rodgers spooked, and if anybody can have Aaron Rodgers spooked, that guy must be good.
Well, it might have been the magic mushrooms, too. Let's not just put it all on O's. Good job, Schefter.
Schefter, you're the man. We appreciate it as always, and we can't wait to talk to you again next week.
Guys, we'll talk after final cutdown day next Tuesday.
Yeah, we'll be paying attention to it. Thank you, Adam.
Receiver. Thank you, buddy.
Guys, have a great week.
You too. There he's Adam Schefter on the Comcast Business Hotline. And, of course, brought to us by Landis Block, create your very own jaw-dropping backyard paradise online at landisbc.com. I don't believe Schefter was in his backyard unless he's having a party.
Hey, I used some of the backyard paradise last night.
I did, too.
It was great. What a beautiful night.
Beautiful night last night. All right, so we'll get to some text messages coming up in a few minutes, and we'll continue all of our discussion about the Eagles and the Phillies. But it is time now for our headlines with Brendan Gunn.
Today's headlines with Connor
Brendan
Thomas.
What up?
Exactly.
What up, Big Gun?
What up? So I appreciate Matt Menark and all the guys behind the scenes putting this awesome music behind this, but today I got to cut it out for a second and get to something that may be nostalgic for guys me and Chunis' age, and that is some backyard sports. They were announced yesterday they're going to be coming back in the coming months. I don't know if you guys remember a couple months ago that Jason Kelce said he wanted to be involved in it. They said he's not involved in it directly, but he represents a whole era of people that are going to look back on this game with complete nostalgia and excitement when it comes back out.
See, Jason Kelce getting the love. I tweeted at Humongous Entertainment a couple of years ago, and they responded at me saying, well, there are downloadable mods. And I said, I don't want a mod. I want a game. So maybe I deserve some of the credit, too, just because Jason Kelce's Mr. Everybody everywhere.
Do you have one of those ugly vehicles that looks like a trash can?
No,
Jason Kelce does.
I wouldn't say that my car
bigger than you.
Did you see what he put on that
Well,
car?
you do have an ugly vehicle.
My car doesn't look much better, I'll be honest.
Kelce put on that old school sticker with the guy, I guess, how do I say
urinating on the Cowboys logo.
Which, by the way, when you're a national analyst,
oh, everybody knows. Who cares?
I know. I just don't.
Chunis, I got a question for you, though. You more of an Major League Baseball player in backyard baseball or the actual original characters like a Pablo Sanchez, Pete Wheeler?
So, look, I love the OG characters, but I want the game to include today's players. And I think for a couple reasons. One, it's awesome. It makes the game even cooler.
They're going to have to pay them.
Well, not I don't know if the players got paid individually, but even if they do, trust me, it's going to be like NCAA. Not as big.
Right.
Like the NCAA made millions of dollars in the first 72 hours.
Sure.
This is something that will get a spike, and they'll probably be able to pay off the players that they need to pay. It's going to be in partnership with Major League Baseball, just like the previous games were with the NBA and the NHL and the NFL. They better do it that way because I think you could also grow the games.
Can I play as Rob Thompson and rest my stars?
You can games? Just be John Kincade resting your stars, but you can call yourself Rob Thompson.
There you go.
But I love it, man.
Take a little nap in the middle of the game and finish it out.
Little Pete Wheeler action. You don't even know backyard baseball.
No, I do know from my younger cousins and nephews.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I
do not know it from playing it. No, I do not.
I used to play on the PC all the time.
Oh, so you're playing this on the PC?
Well, they'll probably make it for the Xbox and stuff.
Yeah, I played on my computer as a kid, 100%.
Like, it got to the point where it was like what are you still doing up? That was the game.
You didn't play in television.
No, I played on the computer.
You didn't play in television. So
no, the old school.
You want to go
big
OG.
old monitors.
Yeah, really.
Damn right,
fun.
man. Yeah, so I'm pumped up, B-Gun.
All right, I got another one for you, but I'm going to let you guys choose something Bryce Harper said after the game or something that has not happened since 2005. Both Phillies related.
Let's do both. We got time.
All right, we'll do both. We'll start with something that has not happened since 2005. And that's our guy, Alec Boehm, reaching base for the 36th consecutive game.
Wow. Boehm at 296 with 13 home runs, and he lines that one back up the middle. It's 36 consecutive games that he's been on base. And a leadoff single here in the second inning.
Yeah, you matched
outstanding.
Jimmy Rollins' streak from 2005. I remember in 2005 when I was playing Little League, I considered walks, hits. I was adding up a base streak. So I have a question, though. Is this cold streak, cold couple of months, couple of weeks, clouding our judgment on what could be remembered as the most special Phillies season of all time?
Well, I can't say most special season of all time just because he's getting on base.
Well, no, I'm saying not him. But if it goes down and they win it all, are we going to look back on these 2 months, these 2 weeks
of
when we were angry?
No, we're not going to look. No, we're not going to remember this.
No, but I'm proud. I said to you this morning, first thing I said to Andrew, true story, and you weren't here yet. You have banker's hours. You don't go over your hours. I said to Andrew, we're going to look back on this year, and the MVP of this team is Alec Boehm.
You did say that, yeah.
Alec Boehm is amazing.
Unless Bryce Harper has another hot streak. If he has a hot streak, let's say starting today till the end of the regular season, that would be 3 months of hot baseball. I mean, look, this
is the guy who has shown up every month.
You're right.
All year long. To me, Alec, I got you.
You're right. All right, save the Bryce Harper thing for the next segment because I do want to reset the show with the Eagles and the Phillies discussion that we have. And I'm curious to hear what Bryce Harper had to say because it was another loss, but this time against a formidable opponent. A lot of people, Phillies fans, tried saying that they were back after a couple wins against the Nationals. I was not ready to say that. I wanted to see how they did against real opponents. And so far, they're 0-1 against real opponents when they lost yesterday. And oh, by the way, Bryce Harper was a part of an 0-for-12 trio of Kyle Schwarber, Trey Turner, and Bryce Harper. So we get into that coming up next. It is Kincade and Salciunas. We'll get to more of your text messages as well right here on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Phillies fall in Atlanta. I'm Brendan Gunn, and this update is brought to you by Wawa. Wawa has new Southwest.
97.5 The Fanatic on this Wednesday morning. We thank Adam Schefter for joining us as he does every single Wednesday. You can hear that again on 975thefanatic.com as well as our YouTube page. Haley does a great job getting that up right away. So,
good job, Hale.
The Adam Schefter interview can be watched and heard again on our YouTube feed. Just search 97.5 The Fanatic or search Adam Schefter on 97.5 The Fanatic. Now, here's what we're talking about today. Likely scenarios, more likely scenarios. The main question of the Eagles is what is more likely to happen. They bounce back this season and take a step forward, or they take a step back. Bill Barnwell of ESPN.com predicting that the Eagles will be one of 5 teams to take a step back this season. A step back from a team that went 11-6 and were 10-1 at one point. So a team that collapsed last season, he believes they'll take another step back. Will Brinson of CBS last week had him going 9-8 until you guys swayed him a little bit.
Yeah, got it to 10.
But he still had 9
bullied
wins.
him into it.
He still had 9 wins as his initial answer. So
he did.
What is more likely to happen? We would love to hear from you. Let's get an Eagles text begun. You can text the show 610-632-0975. We'll get to the calls as well. When it comes to the Eagles, what is more likely to happen? They take a step forward or take a step back in 2024?
Yeah, so we got Logan checking in Wallingford. He says, I believe that you're going to take a step back on the field this year, but what's the ultimate result going to be similar to? Are they more likely to get back to a Super Bowl, or are they more likely to check out in the opening round of the postseason? I think what they see on the field is better, but it could just be a similar result.
Wait, so he thinks they're going to take a step back?
He says they're going to look better on the field, pretty much, but the result could be similar in the end.
So they could lose in the first round.
No, they could go
of
11-6.
Yeah,
so in other
or
words,
they could bow out in the opening round of the postseason instead of going to the Super Bowl.
If you win the division, you have taken a step forward. If you're 11-6 and win the division, you've taken a step forward.
Right, because that's not what happened last year. Yeah.
And also, too, sometimes it's simplistic. Like my own daughter said to me, Dad, if Nick Sirianni's season last year was they lost the 6 games, lose 1 in September, 2 in October, 1 in November, 2 in December, would we have looked at the season differently? And I said, yeah.
Yeah.
When you go 1-7 down the end, it doesn't, 11-6 isn't going to be the same.
Right. And if you get to the playoffs and
you're competitive
and you just lose, all right, we'd be bummed out that they lost to a Buccaneers team. But what happened this past playoff was they didn't show up.
No,
there were business decisions. Yeah, it was horrible. So, yeah, I get what the texter's saying. Let's go to Rick. He wants to talk about the Eagles' offensive line. What up, Rick?
Yeah, gentlemen. I wanted to ask you, a great interview with Schefter. Would Don Shula be that coach you were looking for?
What, a guy that had success and then it fell off and then he came back and had success again, I guess?
Yeah, no. He never had a 1-7 collapse where his players were turning on him and things like that. No.
Okay.
He didn't. Don Shula had, you're right, though. He did have a lull. He did have a lull in his career.
And then he came back and won 2 rings.
Yeah, but that would have been that's in the 60s?
Yeah, well,
it's also different. Think about this, Rick, for a second. Like, Marvin Lewis was 500 for like 20 years, right? Like,
really was.
Today's sports, it's, hey, are you going to win me something next year? Oh, you're not? All right, you're going to get fired. Like, I don't think coaches, except for first-year, second-year head coaches, have a long leash anymore.
Don Shula,
I just threw it out there.
I got you.
No, it's a good example.
He was winning when I was in second and third grade. So
the conversation provokes thought. So
it does.
So real quick, the Eagles, an area that's my biggest concern is an area that hasn't been mentioned that much. The offensive line, when it comes to pass protection, even though they had a nice offensive run running the ball the last couple of years, I've always thought that with Jalen Hurts as their quarterback, they really did not have that strong of a pass protection type offensive line. And I think the problem is you don't know what kind of quarterback you have. If you had a pocket quarterback like Burrows, you had a pocket quarterback like Rodgers, who actually can run a little bit, but you know what you have. But I don't know if this offensive line will synergize with this quarterback, and that's one of my concerns about this team. Will they give him the pass protection he's going to need to be successful?
Yeah, look, it's something to keep an eye on. Thanks for the call, Rick. I've talked about this. I said this to you at one point. I thought the Eagles' offensive line, not last year. Last year was a mess, right?
Yes.
But in 2022, I thought the Eagles' offensive line and Jalen Hurts was a perfect marriage. I'm not, before anybody quotes me and says I thought the offensive line was overrated, I think Jalen Hurts avoided a lot of sacks himself in 2022.
Oh, he did, yeah.
Like, I think the best offensive line in football because of statistics was slightly overrated because I think Jalen Hurts himself escaped numerous sacks, which made the offensive line look better. I also did not believe that Jalen Hurts was some pocket passer, and he had some clean-ass pockets at times during the 2022 season. I think the two of them were a perfect marriage. The question is, can they get back to that this year? Last year, you saw when the pocket collapsed, Hurts could not escape. He did not have the mobility to do it. So that perfect marriage was not perfect anymore last year. If his legs are better this season, which so far it looks like they are, and the offensive line doesn't miss too much of a beat with Jason Kelce now being on the way out, Cam Jurgens now playing center, Mekhi Becton playing a new position, I think you could get back to that 2022, and I think the loss of Jason Kelce will not be talked about that much.
Yeah, I don't believe we're going to be – I do not believe we're going to be coming in here on Mondays going, man, can you believe it? We're Jason Kelce's loss. We just – I never thought it would be this big a drop-off. I just do not believe that is ever going to be –
Yeah, they handpicked Cam Jurgens.
I don't believe it's ever going to be a storyline that we're focusing on.
Right.
There are going to be a bunch of other things that are going to happen.
All right, let's play this audio. Bryce Harper, after the game yesterday, we were going to get into it during headlines, but we ran out of time. But it's a good way to still bring up the Phillies because the Phillies had a loss yesterday where the offense once again didn't show up. Bryce Harper included. He goes 0 for 4, as does Trey Turner and Kyle Schwarber. So 0 for 12 out of the top 3 in your order in a game where you score 1 run and put together 5 measly hits. Here's Bryce Harper postgame.
So it's a big series for the Braves, obviously. How do you kind of match that if you can, sort of match their...
Should be a big series for us, too. I mean, obviously, we got a long ways to go. Still got a month of baseball left, so we should come in here and win games. It doesn't matter how far you are or anything like that. Obviously, you guys know what happened early in 07, so just got to keep going and keep doing our thing.
That's a good answer. It's the right answer.
It is.
It is. It's like, this is a big series for us, too. I mean, I don't want to say prove it because I know that they're trying to, but, like, if God forbid, man, they get swept.
Oh, don't even. Just, I can't even imagine.
All of a sudden, a lot of conversations that we've been poo-pooing come up. I don't think the Phillies will lose the division and miss out on the playoffs. The Braves are riddled with injuries. But, man, you better not wake up that conversation.
I'd love to be able to share something directly. How about this? I know somebody who talked to Bryce Harper in the last 48 hours.
Okay.
And Bryce Harper said, because it's something that I keep seeing on social media. And Bryce Harper told this person, I'm not injured. So, in case
there's people thinking that he got.
Oh,
that
there's
he's
people
hurt.
going, he's probably injured. Bryce Harper's injured right now. That he's not injured. He goes along the lines of just being told that in late August, all players are in some way banged up.
Yeah.
But no injury.
I think people are saying that because they're shocked that this is still going on.
I'm shocked it's going on also.
It's been a long period of time for Bryce Harper.
Am I diving too deep in it? Because he said it should be a big series. Does that mean he doesn't feel like they played like it was a big series last night?
I think that's exactly what he's saying.
And I think that's a good thing then because he's usually not the vocal leader.
And I think also, too, again, I said it yesterday, Andrew, and I didn't bring it up with you earlier. When John Middleton takes a public stance like this,
yeah,
you got to change things up. You can't be passive. We can't just keep doing the same things we've been doing and expect them to turn. I think he's speaking directly to the man who makes these decisions.
I think so, too.
And to me, one thing I know is he's very connected with his players. I believe he maybe was speaking on behalf of some of his players that he employs that want that message to get out, too.
Well,
change up the approach.
I would hope that the players feel comfortable enough to go up to Thompson to talk about that stuff.
Or maybe they just don't think he's going to listen. Could be.
Could
Just
be.
saying.
Maybe.
Could be. Maybe not a good listener at adjusting.
All right, coming up next, we'll dive deeper into this. We get more of your text messages. Also, Whit Merrifield took a slight shot at the Phillies yesterday.
Uh-oh. Did he?
I'll tell you what he said. Also, another more likely to happen scenario. I'll ask one about the coordinators. It's Kincade and Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Now, a Birds
Hope you're having a safe trip into work today. Forgot to say it all show today. That's my bad. I did hear Connor say it yesterday when he was filling in for me. I did hear Connor say, I hope you had a safe trip into work. So that's good. I'm glad that Connor kept that rolling, the good vibes.
17 people being rushed to the hospital
because I haven't mentioned it yet.
Morning.
Well, Schefter throws me off, man, because we start the hour right with Schefter, so that throws me off sometimes.
I got people ripping me for throwing Schefter that question. I have like 2 different people in my DMs giving me hell going, man, you really
it's a hard on-the-spot question to answer, but it's not like you were mean.
No, but the thing is, though, is what I said is asking a question like that and having him stumped. I told him when I asked the question, I've been stumped and I've been researching it. So, I mean, it's like it's a hard question.
Yeah, I mean, look, the situation with Nick Sirianni, we don't see often.
Right.
We really don't. And we've talked about the story that came out from Tim McManus that showed that it was both him and Jalen Hurts to blame. But we have still seen where maybe the head coach and quarterback don't see eye to eye, and the team would side with the quarterback. This is a totally different situation. He basically got fired and is still the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. Kellen Moore is now the offensive coordinator and has the keys to the offense. So he basically lost some of his duties and is still the head coach. He didn't get demoted in terms of job status, but he did get things taken out of his control. And we don't normally see that. So it's going to be an interesting storyline to follow along all season long. All right, we'll get to more text messages on that. And speaking of the OC and DC, I have a question, what is more likely to happen question about them. But real quick, Whit Merrifield took a slight little shot at the Phillies.
What did he say? I'm a little surprised by this because, now look, I interacted with the guy once. So I'm not acting. I had one conversation with him this year. I found him to be really cool, so I'm shocked if he did do that.
Well, they got the win yesterday, and he played well for the Braves yesterday. And 2 more hits. He had a triple yesterday.
Yeah, a triple and a double.
So he says, quote, on Bally Sports South after the game, I would be lying if I said it didn't feel good to play well against a team that told you that you weren't good enough to play for them.
He's absolutely fair to make that statement.
All right, but let's not act like he was hitting 250 or 2. He's batting 199.
No, I get you, but there are no lies detected.
I do love those guys. I wish them the best, just a little bit less when they play the Braves. But look, you sucked, dude. Like, you batted 199. So, the team told you weren't good enough.
Yeah, but he's looking at other people in the organization go, they hit like that, and they get to stick
Nobody's
around.
batting under 200.
He said they've done it before.
The only guy that did was Christian Pache, and they shipped his rear end out of town, too. So
And for 125 games of last year, your leadoff hitter?
Who also hit 7,500 home runs.
I understand.
Like, Whit Merrifield was doing nothing.
Right.
Nothing. It was horrible in the field. Was hitting under 200. Was not providing any pop.
I guarantee you, Whit Merrifield's looking at Brandon Marsh and going, "Really? I can't. I was worse than that."
Well, he wasn't going to play center field.
Exactly.
Brandon Marsh
the
can.
difference.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But he is a Swiss Army knife type of guy. But I found him to be really cool. I'm a little biased because I really did enjoy getting to talk to him. But and good for him. And the day that he left.
No, good for him because he beat the Phillies.
No, I'm going to say good for him.
No, screw him.
No, he gets a right
He said to me.
He gets a right to spike the football today and then now kick his teeth in.
Yes.
Go kick his teeth in.
All right, what do we have on the text line today, B-Gun? When it comes to our Eagles, what is more likely to happen, a bounce-back season or another step back because Bill Barnwell is writing articles about them taking a step back?
All right, we got Chris in Morrisville checking in. He says, this is not necessarily my sentiment, but the national media is looking at it and saying they're replacing a Hall of Fame center who also called out the blitzes. The offensive line is much more thin than it has been in years past, and there's already injuries there. On top of that, the defense is filled with rookies and guys who are hoping that we are hoping they take a giant leap, or they didn't perform as best as they could last year. So I see the point of the argument, but I do not believe we'll be that bad. Go Birds.
Look, I see the point of the argument, too. Don't get me wrong. I really do. But I'm going to say this, man. If they're losing, it's because their offense isn't putting up points, right? Like, their defense isn't going to be so bad where they're allowing 30 points a game.
Yes.
If they're losing football games, it's because this offense is not scoring enough. I can't see how this offense does not score enough unless Jalen Hurts is not the quarterback that we saw in 2022. Or if Kellen Moore can't figure out how to utilize A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Saquon Barkley, which I don't see happening. Do I believe Jalen Hurts is Patrick Mahomes? No, I've been pretty honest with you guys about that. I do think he's still a top 10 quarterback. The only reason why this offense would not put up the points to win football games is because Jalen Hurts took another step back, and I don't think that's going to happen.
Don't either.
So
Don't
for
either.
anybody that's saying 9-8, like I think that's crazy talk.
I do too. And if it happens, we're going to be the ones with egg on our face. We will be the ones with egg on our face because we're very. I just don't see it.
Like if
I don't see it.
Those 8 losses, that means in probably 4 or 5 of them, the offense was doing nothing for a half.
Right.
Because there might be a couple games this year, Getty up, where they lose 33-30. Right, it might still happen. It's a very young, inexperienced defense with a new defensive coordinator. But for the most part, if the Eagles are losing games, it's because the offense wasn't moving the football that day. And I don't expect that to happen all that often.
It better not.
Coming up next, speaking of the offensive coordinator, I want to ask these questions about Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio. Today's the day where we're doing more likely scenarios. What is more likely to happen? The OC and the DC coach up the team the way we are expecting them to, or they're a little overhyped?
Could be a hard one.
What is more likely? I want your answers on that. It's Kincade and Salciunas, 97.5, The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Kincade Salciunas on this Wednesday morning. Hope you had a safe trip into work today. As you just heard, 1 hour from now, the Mike Missanelli show begins. In 10 minutes, we do our 5 best minutes of Adam Schefter, who joins us every single Wednesday. And, of course, we're going to get to more text messages and more calls. And today's topic, the theme of today, is what is more likely to happen scenarios. And this comes off of the Philadelphia Eagles getting another article written about them where they're going to take a step back. Will Brinson, last week, 9-8. Bill Barnwell says 5 teams will take a step back this season. He believes the Eagles will be one of them. Talks a lot about the defense as to be the reason why they will take a slight step back. I just said to you guys right before the break, if the defense is the reason why they're losing games, that means the offense is also not putting up points. This offense should be scoring around 30 points a game, correct?
Yeah, I think it's similar to what if people are arguing about last night. The Phils score 1 run, they lose a game. If the defense is causing them to lose games, how bad was the defense? Was the defense giving up 26 points?
Right.
25 points? Then I'm blaming the offense.
Right, because look,
this offense should be, I'm not saying prolific, all-time great. This offense should be really, really good.
Well, there's no excuse. There really is no excuse. And I know Jalen Hurts uttered the 95% new offense, months ago now.
Yeah, tired of hearing it.
We haven't anymore.
No,
that's been gone, right? And because they've elected to not play in the preseason, look, we'll see how it looks.
Taking another practice off tomorrow, buddy.
That's whatever. It's a practice.
Just saying.
We'll see how it looks come week 1. But I believe that this offense should be motoring right away because of the weapons. I know you can't just roll the ball out there and say, go play. And we saw that last year be a reason why they lost games. But early on, man, if they have limited game plan, they should still put up points because of everything that they have, because defenses can't scheme against one thing. They can say, all right, we'll take away A.J. Brown. Fine. I got Devontae and I got Dallas Goedert, and if the passing game isn't working very well, I can hand the ball off to Saquon Barkley. And if I'm handing the ball to Saquon Barkley and you got 8 guys in the box, then I'm going one-on-one with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, and I'm winning almost every single time. There's no excuse for this offense.
I found a wager and I got a buddy who proxies out in Vegas. I saw a wager that was really tasty on the Eagles over 459.5 points scored, and I took it. So, I don't know what the average is. For those of you who want to do the math there, if you took I need 460 points. Mm-hmm. Okay? That means I need them to score 27 a week. And I think they're going to score 28.
Look, there's been a game they score 42.
And the odds were tasty. It was good odds. And I said, okay, those odds seem a little off.
There'll be a game where they score 24, but there's going to be a game where they score 42.
Absolutely.
And they should put up a lot of points this season. Now, this also all stems around Kellen Moore. So in the spirit of what's more likely to happen, I want to throw another one at you guys, and then we'll get to the text messages, and we have Adam Schefter's best 5 minutes at 9:10. What is more likely to happen when it comes to both Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio? And you can give separate answers for both of them if you want. What's more likely to happen? That these guys are the saviors that we kind of expect, that we've been talking about how they need to be, right? Kellen Moore is replacing Brian Johnson and is also reshaping the offense, and it's not Nick Sirianni's game plan anymore. Vic Fangio is coming in here and being an adult, which Sean Desai was not, and Matt Patricia was just a mess and had Hassan Reddick dropping into coverage. Vic Fangio has pedigree. He's an adult. He also has young players. We've talked about the Georgia players and how they appreciated hard coaching.
Sure.
Vic Fangio will provide that for you.
I don't think any of them, you're not going to hear any of the Georgia players that are going to be complaining like Jalen Ramsey or Tua.
Or Tua Tagovailoa,
about
we're
being
finding
coach
out.
tough.
Right.
Yes.
So are they going to come in here and be these great coordinators that are kind of redirecting where this Eagles team is going, or is it more likely that we're hyping them a little bit? What do you believe is the more likely scenario, John?
Okay. I think the more likely scenario is that we may be overhyping them a bit.
Why? And you have a tattoo. You have Kellen Moore tattooed on you.
I do.
I advised you against it.
And that is what I'm going to say is that I think they're going, like I'm telling you right now, I do believe that, and I put my own money where my mouth was, about like I do believe that they're going to have a great offense. They're going to put a lot of points up on the board. I think there's a chance, though, that, there could be struggle here, struggle there. And on the defensive side, absolutely. I think I may overvalue how quickly Vic Fangio is going to get big results.
But, John, even if they get, we even say middle of the pack is their ceiling.
Right, exactly.
Dude, even if they get to 20.
No, I get
that jumps 10.
20's not good enough, though.
No, but it jumps 10 spots.
Yeah,
dude,
it's not good
we
enough.
would have killed for 20 last year.
I know we would have.
20.
And 20 would have.
You're 11-6. You're now
20 wins the division.
Right.
20 wins the division. They can't be 20 if they want to get where I guarantee they're going to. Where I've been saying,
which is top seed,
top four teams, and I think they're going to host. So to me, I think that there's a chance that I maybe would have overhyped Vic Fangio's immediate impact.
And we're also looking at them as
I'm
saviors.
just trying to be introspective.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Begun. What's more likely to happen? That we end up overrating these guys, or they are the saviors that we've kind of are hoping them to be because of how much of a mess last year was with Brian Johnson and Sean Desai.
Yeah, so I'm going to split it in two. I'm going to say Kellen Moore is going to be that savior, right? Because there's not as many cooks in the kitchen for this offense this year. As long as Nick Sirianni stays out of it for the most part, then this offense should be pretty great. There shouldn't be anything stopping them. As far as the defense goes and Vic Fangio, I mean, he said it himself. What makes his defense so great? The players, man. And I am not sold on this defense quite yet. Will they be better than 30th? Yeah, that's
how
a
much?
floor.
Okay, if I look, we're playing the range game on Price is Right. Where do you stop the range? Where, like, give
12
me
to 15 is their peak in my mind.
That's their peak, but where are they going to end? You got a 4-number range that they're going to end in. Right now, you got to go on the record.
14 to 18.
Yeah, they're 15 to 20 in my mind, so something like that. So that's more than 4, obviously.
See, I'm
going
12 to 16.
Okay. Well,
and that may be too optimistic. That's where I'm trying to be. I'm trying to be introspective in the fact that, though I am a very bright football mind, I could easily run an NFL team.
Damn right you could.
That there's a chance. One thing I know, something that I believe about this season, I'm going to be way off.
Yeah, it scares me because we've kind of ran away with Vic Fangio is just going to come in overnight. He's going to make everybody better just like that. Like, you don't have two outside cornerbacks that are rookies, another one that's a second-year player in Keely Ringo, a guy that's 34 might lose a step.
I think there's going to be a struggle, though. I think there's going to be a struggle.
Yeah.
Which is
it's
why
not going to be.
We've had this conversation numerous times. I will be patient with the defense. I'm not going to be patient with the offense. The offense is too talented.
And you shouldn't be.
The offense is too talented, and yet I'm being told by so many people to be patient with the offense and not with the defense. Whereas, look, I got to let these kids grow into something. That's what Kansas City did, and they've won multiple Super Bowls because of it, and they won a Super Bowl during one of those growth years.
There should be no patience with the offense.
No, and you know why? And Brendan, if I were to have to pick one, I would pick Kellen Moore as the guy that will probably actually come in here and probably do a little bit more. And here's the reason why. The players are saying it. Like Devontae Smith during OTAs was talking about how, wow, pre-snap motion, we have more space, we have more freedom. The players are saying it.
Do you remember the players bragging on last year on Brian Johnson?
No, not at all. And you know what? I haven't heard any of the Eagles defensive players this year say how great the scheme is. They're saying how Vic's a great coach.
Did you hear Brandon Graham on the broadcast?
Mm-mm.
I don't know if you're watching the broadcast. Dave Spadero did a really, really good job. He's interviewing Brandon Graham on the sidelines. And Brandon Graham lets it be known flat out. Oh, we butt heads. And we go back and forth. And we've gotten him to loosen up on some things that he wanted, that we wanted, but it's give and take. And he let it out right out of the bag. He goes, it's not some love fest with Vic Fangio all the time.
Right.
But the respect is there.
And that's what Miami didn't have last year.
And I think the Eagles didn't either. I don't think the respect was there for
Sean
the
Desai?
defensive coordinator.
Shouldn't have been there.
And that's what I think.
Respect did he earn other than being the coach?
And that's what I think is the difference.
You can't respect a defensive coordinator where you strip him of a whole down.
Right, exactly. He lost the third down. And that was before he got demoted from being the defensive coordinator.
And again, that's on the head coach.
Yes.
Just being that's stupid.
You know how I feel about it.
I got you.
All right, so answer any of our questions. Today is about most likely to happen, more likely to happen scenarios. It stems off of Bill Barnwell saying that the Eagles are going to take a step back. So what is more likely to happen for the Eagles? They take a step back, another step back, or they take a step forward? That was the first question. Then we've kind of bridged it off into a couple of things. Jalen Hurts, is he more likely to improve from last season or regress again? Saquon Barkley, is he more likely to have the contract really pay off for the Eagles, or our initial concerns that we all had, the contract wasn't worth paying Saquon Barkley after all the years that he's played in the NFL and he's had some injury history? Nick Sirianni, what is more likely to happen? He's the head coach after this season, or the Eagles are searching for another coach? And lastly, when it comes to the Eagles, the ones that we just opened up, what's more likely to happen for the coordinators? They are the saviors that we're hoping to be, or we slightly overhyped them, or more than slightly. You can text in, you can call in 610-632-0975. Overall Phillies discussion on the table after another loss yesterday because they were not back after a couple of wins against the Nationals. But let's play our 5 best minutes of Adam Schefter, and then we'll get back to the text line. From ESPN, Adam Schefter joins us. Shefty, good morning.
Good morning, guys. What's going on?
So today we're getting into most likely scenario discussions, and I'll throw a few at you. But the reason why we're having this discussion is Bill Barnwell, one of the great employees at ESPN, predicted 5 teams to most likely decline in the 2024 season. 3 of those teams all in the same division: Steelers, Ravens, Browns. He has the Giants, and he has the Eagles. So, Shefty, I'll ask you, not what needs to happen, but what is most likely to happen? That the Eagles bounce back this season, or that they take another step back and injuries are not on the table? It's just the roster and how it's constructed.
Well, I think it's more likely that they step forward, but if Bill Barnwell's right, then that's going to create a chaotic season in Philadelphia with lots of turmoil and lots of speculation. And I know you guys, I think you guys would rather have them win, but boy, it's going to be busy at the station if Bill Barnwell is correct.
I'm surprised that that opinion is out there. And one of the things being is that I think the overwhelming opinion is people don't believe you can transition this many young people in on a defense and find success early on. With Vic Fangio's expertise and what you know of him, how hard is that task going to be, Shefty?
I don't know that they have as much defensive talent as they've had in other years. I think that the defensive talent is solid, and I think they're counting on Vic Fangio to make sure that there are no issues, that everything gets ramped up, that everything goes the way they want it to. But I don't think it's a given that this defense is going to come in and play lights out the way that some people think. Are you expecting this defense to be much better, John?
Yeah, I'm going to say that they were 30th. They were 30th last year, so I do expect them to be much better. I would guess though, my ceiling is around middle of the pack, a little better.
Well, middle of the pack would be a dramatic improvement.
Dramatic.
Obviously. Yeah, and honestly, and I don't think this is a shot to make them up that way, but I just think the coaching change is going to be one big difference. And they may be lacking some talent on the defensive side of football. They may not be as talented as a lot of other teams defensively. I even said this today. I go, Vic. Last week, I go, Vic, whatever this defense is lacking, you can make up for it. He kind of like, no, nobody wants to hear that. You want everybody to chip in and do their job. And it's not that easy. But I have come to expect out of Vic, because that's, to me, the kind of coach he is. And we'll see, not on him, but we'll see if he can come through like I think he can.
Shefty, I don't even want to believe that this could be a possibility, but the articles that are starting to come out about the Eagles' slow start, right? So Bill Barnwell believes it could be a slow start because of all the turnover on defense. A reporter from CBS has the Eagles going 9-8 because of a slow start. If they have a slow start, 2-2, 2-3, 1-4, I mean, how itchy is the trigger finger for Howie when it comes to the head coach?
Well, the coach, I think it would take a lot to make an early in-season change. I mean, those are rare. Those are the disaster seasons. those types of changes that are reserved for the teams that are thinking at the top of the draft. And even if the season doesn't go the way the Eagles want, I still don't see that scenario. So I don't see that in play, but that's the great part of the season, is that there are things that happen all the time that you don't see coming. It's hard for me to imagine all of a sudden they're going to be changing coaches early in the season. I don't see that scenario. I don't see it. Now, what we're talking about is all these other scenarios, right? Like the Eagles season won't be as good as you think, like Bill Barnwell saying, or they're going to get off to a slow start like CBS is saying. I'll just say this. If all those people are right and the season doesn't go the way that they want, then you know what that means? It means that the scenario that we've talked about, that we've floated on this show, is going to unfold. And that means that Jaden Daniels is going to come to life, be a major player for the Offensive Rookie of the Year, almost single-handedly turn around that organization, and have Washington be a factor for the next decade. We've talked about that, right?
All right, there he is, Adam Schefter, the 5 best minutes of him today. He's very high on Jaden Daniels. Very high on him, and has been for like months.
I believe Jaden Daniels is going to be a good quarterback. I don't like that Washington got him. I do not know how great he's going to be, the organization that surrounds him, but that's one that I did not want to see happen.
Look, I'll say this, and I know this is something that people don't like hearing because the Sixers haven't won anything. Josh Harris does try very hard to try to win. Now, the problem is it hasn't necessarily always been the right thing, and I think he just signs paychecks. I think he lets people tell him what to do, and then he just signs. But he's going to do whatever he can to win with the Commanders, as he does with the Devils and as he still does with the Sixers.
And to me, that's something that's very admirable in an owner.
Well, yeah.
He gives them the resources to try to win. He is not a big meddler.
No.
And but to me, I did not like seeing Daniels be the Washington coach. And I also do believe Dan Quinn, I've told you before, he is a Red Bull. He's a Red Bull kind of guy to an organization. I watched it. Dan Quinn did a damn good job, but it wears off.
Right, after a while. After a couple of years,
But I think he's going to get Washington back on their feet. I really do. How about this? Want to go bold? And we'll talk about this as we get closer to the season.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be shocked if Washington is the surprise team in the NFC. Wouldn't be shocked. And I saw them picked for last by like 3 different people.
No, I think the Giants are last.
The Giants are last.
The Giants stink. The Giants have stunk. The Giants will continue to stink.
And I'm surprised because I thought that Brian Dable was a missed opportunity here.
Or Daniel Jones is that bad. It's a little bit of both.
It could be, but he's also responsible for picking him and.
Well, no, he was already there, but then they paid him.
Right. I mean, he advocated for him to be paid.
Right, and that's
developing him
not really worked out for him at all. All right, what do we have on the text line about our Eagles there, Brendan?
Yeah, we got TJ in Chichester checking in. He says, if Jalen Carter is not as good as we need him to be, then the whole defense can struggle. I don't like the idea that a single player has that much control on the success of a whole side of the ball. Not saying they are likely to be worse on defense, but it's not a sure thing they'll be better enough for it to actually matter.
If that scenario happens, they got a problem.
Yeah.
If that scenario happens, and I'll tell you another one, more than Jalen Carter, I think the clock is more on Jordan Davis to take that step up and be the guy that they think he is. Dude. They need both of those guys to be impact, cornerstone defensive players here.
Yeah.
And look, if they aren't, it's going to be a problem.
John, I know it's year one for him. Bryce Huff needs to take a step up.
Sure he does.
In terms of his career.
Sure he does.
That's why the pass rush has been my biggest concern since the jump. I still believe that they're going to win 12 games. I still think that they're going to be a great football team. I still think that they could make a deep run in the playoffs. I just also expect Howie Roseman to be busy, maybe at the trade deadline. Remember how last year it was Byard in the safety position?
Yes.
Not that the crop is great. I wouldn't be surprised that at some point this year we're talking about Howie Roseman being in the market for an edge rusher because I don't trust Josh Sweat as it is. And Bryce Huff is now all of a sudden going to be a full-time player?
I hope he's in the market for a third wide receiver.
Well, that's happening now.
I hope so.
At least I think. All right, Kincade Salciunas continues. Nick Sirianni will speak to the media As John said, last practice of training camp. He'll speak to the media coming up at 9:40. We'll carry that for you live. And I am going to use this most likely scenario question that we've been having for multiple topics with the Eagles. I'm going to bring something up next about the Phillies. And it's in the wheelhouse for a lot of the doom and gloom fans out there. But this series could be telling. It's Kincade and Salciunas, 97.5, The Fanatic.
Of Kincade Salciunas is presented to you by The Bagster. It's a dumpster in a bag. You can get yours today at Home Depot and Lowe's. You need details? Go to Bagster.com.
It is 9:34 on Kincade and Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic. Coming up, allegedly at 9:40, Nick Sirianni will be speaking to the media. He was supposed to speak tomorrow, which is why our breaks had to get mixed up a little bit today.
Yeah, they canceled practice for tomorrow.
So they canceled practice. Sirianni decides to move his media availability to today, screwing up our clocks here. And you know he's not going to be on at 9:40. But if he is, we will have it ready for you. It's just he's never on time. Why would he ever be on time? And why would he ever do something scheduled?
I can't believe people. There's nothing. Punctuality, man. It's something you got to learn. And you demand it of your players and everything. I want to remind everybody to support life-saving cancer research. That you can join us in our generous partner, Window Nation. And if you want to make a donation today to the American Association for Cancer Research, I think you should do it at 975thefanatic.com/AACR. Just in case we get... Nick can sometimes be a little long-winded.
Yes, he sometimes. Hey, Nick, how's the weather? Well, it's a really nice day, but I was thinking about this earlier today when I was talking to my brother. His weather at Mount Union's really good right now.
You know that when I'm looking at this camp, and I remember my brother one year having a great camp.
They had great weather. Better weather than this weather, but our weather's pretty good. Our weather's as good as some other weather.
And what are those kids having for lunch here for camp? What are they doing?
He's amazing.
Yeah, well, his core value was punctuality, but it's not.
It's not. No.
He's an amazing individual, isn't he? All right, so I want to run this by you. So today's questions have been coming off of more likely scenarios. What is more likely or less likely?
Okay. Yeah.
And it's started with the Bill Barnwell article where he believes the Eagles will take a step back this season. So we asked the question, what is more likely to happen? The Eagles take a step forward or they take a step back? We talked about Saquon Barkley. What's more likely to happen? The contract pays off or our initial fear of overpaying for a running back, which is something the Eagles don't typically do. They went against their, what they believe in. Will those initial fears be what's actually true? I want to bring one up for the Phillies with you guys.
Okay. This is a nice little twist.
And I don't believe it to be the case. So right away, you know my answer.
Okay.
But I will ask you the question because I know there are a lot of people out there that have been saying something like this for a while. My question, what is more likely to happen? The Eagles will be in the playoffs as a top 3 seed, right? Either they get the first round bye
okay.
or they have to host a team as a 3rd seed.
Okay.
Or they're the 6th seed, if not out of the playoffs.
Oh, my gosh. More likely? I don't know how anybody couldn't say top 3.
I'm with you, too.
Because what you're going to tell me is, if you don't tell me top 3, and you say like 6th seed or whatever, 6 or 7 seed, then you're telling me that you believe Dallas is better than the Eagles.
No, I'm Phillies.
And Washington. Oh, I'm sorry, Phillies. Excuse me.
That the Braves come back. Beat. Yes.
Braves come back. We've been so eagled out.
Yes, we have.
That the Braves come back and win this division. Come on now.
Which right now.
No, it's not happening.
Right
it's ridiculous.
Now, I'm just throwing it out there.
No, I believe we have gloom and doomers that say that. And what do? When the team wins 4 in a row,
they don't say anything.
They mysteriously disappear from my timeline. And then first, here it is. And look, and then they'll go, look, you even think they're collapsing. I said, I absolutely view what's going on right now as a collapse. But do I think the collapse is going to be out of winning the division? Hell no. There's a difference.
Yeah,
there's a difference. I'm not being, coming with a Scooby-Doo scenario.
I don't know if I have red colored goggles on or whatnot, but they're going to be a top 3 seed in the postseason. They're going to be in the NLCS at a bare minimum. They're getting there.
Whoa.
Bare minimum NLCS. And I was one of those guys. I might have Sixer syndrome with this Phillies team where I always said the seed didn't matter regardless. I think they're still going to win the division though, and they're going to be right where I expected them to be. So I'm not going to remember this point in the season when I was screaming at my TV for a month on end.
I'm just going to remember 2 months.
You just guaranteed the Phillies are in the NLCS.
Yeah, I think that's much more fairer than saying Eagles are going to be the 1 seed and hosting the NFC Championship
right
game.
now,
I think that's much more
right now,
likely.
Guaranteeing they're in the NLCS means that they could be beat. You could be thinking that they're beating a team who had the bye, which has happened before. The bye teams have
happened. The Phillies have done it twice now.
But I'm hearing from some of these people now that are trying to make excuses going, yeah, you don't even really want the bye.
When they come to the postseason, that starting pitching is going to be all the difference. Like, you can't tell me any team can match up with the Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, and fingers crossed, Ranger Suarez.
I saw Zach Wheeler be dominant last night.
I saw Zach Wheeler get beat by Lopez last night.
He did not get beat. He did not get beat. Those bats.
Right, he didn't get beat.
He did.
No, he didn't get beat.
But he did.
The bats, look.
10 strikeouts in 5 innings against this team. Lopez
that's not Zach Wheeler's fault.
Yeah, but Lopez is not supposed to be.
You're telling me this team's just going to bow out early in the postseason?
Could it happen?
There's no way.
If you've watched this team the last 2 months, how can you guarantee me that that's not going to?
It could very well happen.
Because your scenario, you're guaranteeing me right now, they could have to play the wild card round.
I've seen this team come alive in the postseason on much worse seasons, much worse stretches in seasons. Like, they're going to be fine. They're going to be fine. And I'm not saying that, like, you can't be angry right now.
This is not the same as the last 2 seasons. This is nothing like it.
If they started the season with this awful 2-month stretch and then turned it around, nobody would be crying about it. Nobody would say, oh, that's an awful 2-month stretch.
Listen,
they would just say they started that way.
To say the expectations are still World Series, totally fair. Like, we should still hold them to that. That's what the whole messaging was going into the season. But for you to say, I fully expect them to still get to the NLCS.
No, you guaranteed it.
I guarantee it. I will be. I'll come in with donuts for the crew the day we come into the NLCS.
They honestly, they right now have a playoff series now the first week of September. They have to go to Milwaukee, a team that they're now tied with, and play a 3-game series. And Milwaukee is a team that you got to finish ahead of, because I don't think you're finishing ahead of the Dodgers.
They're going to win tonight. They're going to win tomorrow. And this is all going to be much about nothing. They're going to be fine.
If they win the next 2.
That's not going to guarantee me, though, I say they're in the NLCS.
But if they win the next 2, then the conversations of they're back,
they're in the top 3.
We can start legitimately having again. I was not going to have that conversation after splitting a 2-game series with the Marlins and taking 3 of 4 against the Nationals. If you then take 2 of 3 against the Braves, great. But you're
the beat up Braves.
Well, that's the other thing. But you're also guaranteeing wins the next 2 nights, dude. I've seen Aaron Nola come up small with the best of them, and I've seen Max Fried have success against the Phillies. I've seen the Phillies beat Max Fried.
Max Fried has been more frustrating for the Braves than Aaron Nola has been for the Phillies all season. Max Fried's not having a good year.
Tonight's not a lock. It's not. You can't lock a Phillies win tonight.
You can't lock a Phillies win any night right now the way they're playing.
You just guaranteed us
September.
You guaranteed us 1 or 2 series wins.
There's something about that chair.
I'm telling
Connor,
you,
there's something about that seat in there that the Phillies can do no wrong.
I mean, I'm not saying they can't do no wrong. They're very frustrating right now. Like, I scream at my TV night in, night out. This did not change.
Yeah, they're causing you to scream night in, night out.
But no, I went into this season, no matter what happened in the regular season, I believe in this team in the postseason, and nothing in the regular season is going to deter.
Yeah, but you weren't expecting a 2-month stretch.
And I don't want to hear about other years. This team was up 10 in the division, was up 8 on the Brewers, was up 6 on the Dodgers, and they've let them all back in. It's ridiculous. This is not like 2022 and 23. This is a team that had the big lead and reverts back to an inferior product.
So you think
that can't be the same?
They're going to bow out early. They're going to
no. What I'm saying is,
you're guaranteeing them winning.
You guarantee that they're in the Final Four is crazy right now. The way this team has played, I can't even imagine you're guaranteeing that.
They're going to pick it back up. They're going to get a top 2 seed. They're going to get a bye.
Look,
I love that optimism.
Wow,
man.
I love your optimism too, but it is blind.
It's blind.
Right now,
I was about to say
right now it's blind optimism.
You even just said maybe I'm wearing red-colored goggles.
Series. Who are they going to lose to in the wild card series with Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, Ranger Suarez?
They could lose to anyone. They could play. Look, you could play the Braves in a wild card series. You just lost last night with Wheeler.
You're not losing to the Braves in the wild card series. That team is banged up. Whit Merrifield's not going to go out there and go
they've
two hits on you every night.
They've played you 7 times this year, and they've beaten you 5.
Yeah, to say that there's no
come
way.
on.
And they have for years and years. And what does it matter in October?
You're not talking about the same team. This team is having a crisis of confidence. This team is not cocky and confident. This team doesn't have any swagger.
So today on August 21st, you're telling me they're not going to be...
No. What I'm
We're
telling
just
you
not
is
guaranteeing
we have no
anything.
idea what they're going to be because they've created a giant crapshoot.
I don't get how you can be so negative on this Phillies team and then promise
How can
that
you be so positive? Look, I would rather be positive, but I'm not going to all of a sudden after a win against the Marlins and then which by the way, Kyle Schwarber needed to save the game with a grand slam and then taking 3 or 4 against the Nationals. All of a sudden, I'm going to say this is the team. They're back. Then they lose game 1 against the Braves. Look, do I think that the season's over? No. Do I think that they can still make it to the World Series and win?
And
yes.
we both think they're winning the division.
But to guarantee anything,
that is
Brendan,
ballsy. That is ballsy.
Oh my! They've had.
Can't get
if
over
you're going to
it.
say the Braves have had the Phillies number, then the Phillies have had the Dodgers number all year long, and that should be the same kind of logic when you get into the postseason.
The thing is you've got to be. How the hell did you give up this lead? How did you blow a 6-game lead for the top seed? An 8-game lead over the Brewers. How did you blow an 8-game lead in 3.5 weeks? Stop it, Brendan.
Like I'm not
sunshine
sitting here
and
pie in the sky.
lollipops.
I'm not pretending it has been for the past 2 months.
You blew an 8-game lead in 3.5 weeks.
It's the same mentality with the Sixers. They can go out there and be the number 1 seed. Guess what? They're still losing in the second round. I'm just flipping it on its head because the Phillies have promised us that year after year, the past 2 years, they have not got it done in the regular season. In October, they get it done. That's what this team is.
And they've also gagged under pressure 2 years in a row. Come on.
Yeah, in the World Series, they were supposed to lose to the Astros.
You don't know what you're going to get with this team. They're erratic. And I'm not saying you're wrong that they're going to get to the NLCS, but to guarantee it, I think I honestly, I think you need to pee in a cup.
I've never been so sure about anything in my life that this Phillies team is going to be in the NLCS.
So I'm happy for you that you are so sure. Like, all right,
it's that chair.
When I feel this confident about something, because we have the luxury of doing it with our respective apps.
Right, exactly.
If I ever feel that comfortable, like my 3, I've given you only 3 lock guarantee wins for the Phillies this season. They're 3-0. I could feel very comfortable putting.
So get on the same page with me about the NLCS.
No. I don't feel that. I feel that way about the Eagles winning the division. I believe it is a stone-cold lock that the Eagles win the division, and I will be placing my bets on my FanDuel Sportsbook app before the season starts in order to do it. The only reason why I haven't done it yet is because I like to wait until the preseason's over before I have my final say, but I feel certain that the Eagles are winning the division. I would not put money today. I may have a ticket from before the season started, but I will not put my money, a new bet in today for the Phillies to reach the NLCS because I don't feel that kind of comfort.
They're more healthy than everybody else in the whole National League.
And they're playing like
garbage.
But I almost cursed.
I have more faith that the healthy team will turn it around than a non-healthy team will beat the Phillies.
Yes, that makes sense.
8 weeks. You could use the I have faith in them turning it around. Not at 8 weeks. You could have said that to me at 2 weeks. I was saying it to people at 3 weeks. You can't say it in 8 weeks. You can't.
All right, here's head coach Nick Sirianni.
Yeah, a lot. We talk about that daily. And to say what's set, what's not set, I mean, there's been so much work that's done. Like, you can imagine, like, all the work that's done today, there's not going to, I mean, today's practice counts in it as well, but, I mean, every day is an evaluation, and now we're at the last day of training camp. So everything will be in consideration. So I don't want to say, hey, a percentage of this or that, but like they've been going through a competition through the entire training camp and off season.
Nick, with a couple of better, this is averaged about almost 20 minutes longer this year than last summer. Only 20% more reps this summer than last summer. How did that serve you, and how do you think?
Is that documented? The 20% and all the?
Just under.
Oh, okay, gotcha. All right, so say that again.
Say 17.
17. Okay, gotcha.
Something like that. But how did those extra reps, longer practices, as far as conditioning, as far as learning, how did that serve you guys?
Yeah, I think we've had a good training camp. Guys have worked hard. Guys have competed well, and it's been a really exciting training camp. I feel like we've gotten better throughout the not only. When you grind together like we have throughout this training camp, I think guys get closer naturally. They get better. And yeah, it was just I just felt like it's been we got a good practice coming up today, kind of like we'll treat again like one of our joint practices, very similar to what we had the other day. So it'll be a long practice, and but yeah, I think it's been good, and guys have gotten better, and it's been exciting.
With a couple of veterans you have that have missed a lot of time, like Paris Campbell and Warren Burks, in the evaluation process, how much do you look at what they've done in their past versus the limited window you've seen from them in camp?
Yeah, sure. Everything's in play, obviously. That'd be crazy of us not to take everything into account. So, yeah, everything's in play.
I think you said in the past that you showed the team like clips of players that did something extraordinary, like the final preseason game that helped them make the team. I think you cited like Austin Eckler in the past. That you're doing that again this year, and you have like recent examples of guys your tenure here that have earned spots like in that final game.
Sure. Yeah. We'll probably do something similar to that again. But as far as the guys here, I mean, we had a good amount of undrafted free agents make it right the last couple years. Names that come to my mind: Covey and Josh Jobe and Ben Van Sumeren, right? So those are a couple guys that come to my mind.
In terms of the offense, what's popped up in training camp that didn't come up in OTAs in terms of just something that may have surprised you about the organization of the players, building ideas?
I'm sorry. I said one more time.
What popped up in training camp that wasn't really in consideration in OTAs?
Well, the one main thing is that there's pads on, and that's how football is played, is with the pads on. So, yeah.
Guys, in March, Jeffrey Lurie said that you were going to find the sweet spot in finding kind of like with your passion, staying authentic to yourself in terms of that, but also kind of reining it in certain circumstances on the sideline, perhaps, maybe in your dealings with others. How have you gone about doing that?
Yeah, again, we're always, all of us, the moment we stop growing and trying to grow in our profession and grow as, people, as players, as coaches, is the moment you might as well not be doing it anymore. So we're constantly trying to evolve everything that we do to, you go through adversity and you think about what can I do better in adversity. You go through hard time or good times and you think about what could I do better. So everything's always in a constant evaluation of yourself. That's accountability, right? And so, to point out a specific thing, I mean, I've worked a lot on a lot of different things just to make sure that that I'm being the best head coach that I possibly can be. And so I wouldn't say,
thought about. I know it's only been preseason games. The passion probably isn't there as much as it would be.
Well, I'm excited. I'm excited about preseason. I want to win those games too.
Yeah. That's something that you feel like in certain circumstances that you can dial it down. One thing that I read when I was reading a leadership book this off season was, if you want everyone around you to have accountability and you want yourself to have accountability, then you fussing at the refs is not. It's almost like, hey, this happened, so I'm going to blame that, right? And so when I heard that, when I read that, I was like, yeah, that hit me like some sort of way, like. When I think about me, with a referee potentially on the sideline, I'm like, and I complain about a call. Is that really sending the right message to the rest of the team as far as our accountability goes? Again, when something goes wrong, the answer should be, how do we fix this and what are the solutions, as opposed to looking for a scapegoat. I guess to say is how I read it in the book, and that hit me a certain way because, with our core values being what they are, our connect, our accountability, our kindness, our detail, with our core values being that and accountability being such a big one, I looked at that as that doesn't mean like I'm not going to be perfect. I already know that, but that's definitely on my mind. You brought up the sideline, the stuff. Like, I'm going to still be super energetic when we score. I can't, and when we have good plays, because that's one of the things that you love about football is the camaraderie of, like, I'm telling our guys, hey, when you make a play, I can't wait to see what you guys do to celebrate with each other within the rules of the game, right? Be yourself, have fun, do it within the rules of the game. And so, like, that's going to still be there. But I think the one thing, Jeff, is that I really thought a lot about. That hit me some certain way when I read that book of, the accountability piece. And so, we're always in a work in progress. I'll be a work in progress until I'm done coaching, until I die, I feel like, just because, that's just what I've always been taught, and you're always striving to get better at everything that you do.
All right, we're going to play a game tomorrow. How many times did he say accountability in that one answer?
My gosh.
And we'll take a shot. We'll be drunk by 6:30. All right, Mike Missanelli show is coming your way next. We'll be back at it tomorrow morning on Kincade Salciunas 97.